Chapter 787. Dean Feng's face was pale and his mind was buzzing. How could this be? When did such a person appear in their circle? At the door. Feng Jiangwen's face was ashen as he gritted his teeth and looked at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj, why did you come to the junior class? If it wasn't for her, his father wouldn't have offended Principal Bai. With Bei Yunj's background, she didn't need the reputation of being the assistant teacher of the junior class. I'm free. Bei Yunj glanced at him and her phone vibrated. She took out her phone, glanced at Suja, and left. Go and treat your wounds first. Okay, Suja looked at Bei Yunj's departing figure with a complicated gaze. In the end, he made a bold decision. He wanted to enter the computing institute. By the window. Bei Yunj picked up the phone and said leisurely, "What's wrong?" Shang Yan's gentle voice sounded from the phone through the current. I need you to come to our nation. When are you free? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. Around the day after tomorrow. Shang Yan seemed a little surprised. He paused for a moment and asked, "Fair as prize?" Yes, I'll go over and settle something on the way. Hearing Bei Yunj's words, Shang Yan also chuckled. Okay, then let Niayu pick you up. I need you to confirm a few research and development products for Higgins. Bei Yunj had never seen Niayu before. She only knew that he was Shang Yan's assistant. Okay. After hanging up, Bei Yunj was about to go back when another call came in. It was an unknown number. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and hung up. On the other side. CI7 Yunqing branch. Jiang Song hesitated for a moment before confirming one thing. Wenxin School. He was hung up by this new member of the chaos. Jiang Song, this was the first time someone had hung up on him. Jiang Song endured it and took a deep breath. He couldn't be angry. The higher-ups had said that this was a big shot who had single-handedly defeated all of hibernating Lion 173. He had to give the big shot a little more care. After dialing another number, Jiang Song began to flip out. What's wrong with you K-assists? Max isn't picking up the phone. The one who answered the phone was the deputy leader of the Chaos Men, Yin Sha. Yin Sha rolled her eyes, but her tone was very gentle. Max doesn't like to answer the phone. I suggest you send a text message. After that, Yin Sha hung up the phone. What a joke. How did he think Kay got in touch with Max? If they called Max every day, Max would lose her temper and tear them apart. Wouldn't it be polite and amiable to send a text message to inform the big boss first? Jiang Song's face darkened after being hung up on for the second time. The K-assists were simply too arrogant. Did they think that they wouldn't want anyone else other than the K-assists? Afternoon. Bei Yunj was eating shaved ice when her phone suddenly vibrated. She took it out and saw that it was a message from the unknown number. Max, have you been too busy recently? I'm Jiang Song, the director of the CI7 Yun City branch. I'd like to invite you to the Yun City branch for a simple understanding. You can set the time and the address will be sent to your phone. Is that okay? I'm looking forward to meeting you. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and remembered that there was such a matter. Soon. Bei Yunj lazily stirred the shaved ice with one hand and replied to his message. Sure. Jiang Song took a look and immediately replied to Bei Yunj's message. You're not coming recently? Are you very busy recently? Chapter 788. Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes narrowed. She bit her small spoon and typed a message. Yes, get an award. On the other side, Jiang Song was speechless. Get an award? Jiang Song turned his head and asked his companion, do you know Max? Is she an artist? Have you read too many romance novels? How can a hacker be a part-time artist? The boy with curly hair laughed. Jiang Song was even more puzzled. Then where is she going to get an award? What? To get an award? Let me see. The guy with curly hair immediately snatched the phone and looked at the simple chat history for a while. Finally, he said, "Boss, you're such a lackey." Jiang Song's cold gaze fell on the guy with curly hair. The guy with curly hair shook his head. It's a man's act to endure humiliation. Jiang Song didn't have time to argue with him. He just couldn't help but ask, "Is there any particularly important award ceremony in the next few days?" It was actually more important than entering C-17. Thinking back, when they first had a meeting with C-17's internal staff, they couldn't sleep in the middle of the night and couldn't wait to fly over to sign the agreement. This person, on the other hand, had a full schedule. They still had to make an appointment with her. Recently? Yes, Country R's fairest prize, the guy with curly hair said straightforwardly. Jiang Song was speechless. What did you say? The guy with curly hair thought that Jiang Song really didn't hear him clearly and started talking non-stop. The fairest mathematics prize is the highest honor in the mathematics world. Those who can win this prize are geniuses among geniuses. Then do you think this prize has anything to do with Max? Jiang Song smiled slightly. Wasn't this lower than the probability of Max being an artist? The guy with curly hair thought for a while. Aren't those who study computer science very good at mathematics? Good your head. Jiang Song slapped the back of the guy's head to wake him up. He had read too much, hadn't he? The next day, the punishment from the higher-ups was quickly handed down. Feng Jiangwen was temporarily suspended, but Dean Feng was dismissed. This matter spread like wildfire in the school. Feng Jiangwen's expression was even worse. He didn't speak to anyone for the whole day. Until noon. The competition of the junior class began. In the conference hall, Bei Yunj was sitting in the third row. When she saw the results of the junior class in Yuncheng, she quickly lowered her head and played with her phone. Fortunately, Teacher Ho's ability to withstand pressure was strong. He could still maintain a fake smile. 311. Yincheng University's Junior Class 3, Beichuan University's Junior Class 11. As the top university in the country, Yun University had lost miserably this time. Yun University's enrollment was much stricter than Beichuan University's. However, the students of Yun University's junior class thought that their high IQ and ability could suppress everything and were unwilling to work hard on their studies. So this was good. This time, the people from Beichuan next door were rubbing their faces against the ground. Until today, the students of Yun University's junior class finally realized that they did not have the right to be at ease. Seeing the dejected faces of the students of Yun University's junior class, Pei Yunj also felt that this competition was a very good lesson. Teacher Ho, calm down. Bei Yunj glanced at Teacher Ho. He was probably thinking of Tich and the others, so he suddenly became gentler towards Teacher Ho. Teacher Ho was a little surprised by Bei Yunj's sudden consolation. Read, 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 he sighed. We're probably going to lose this competition. What's so important about losing? Bei Yunj's understanding words made Jian Shi, who was playing games at the side, slowly turn to look at her. Last time, when Jasmine was careless in the competition and almost tied with the second place, she remembered that Bei Yunj did not say that. Bei Yunj's original words were, "Fortunately, you won this time. Otherwise, I really don't know if I should start teaching you from the elementary school curriculum again." Their teacher's damn desire to win. You're right. You have a good mentality. Teacher Ho nodded in agreement. Only Jian Shi lowered her head and did not dare to speak. Bei Yunj's eyes were still bright and unruly. There was a lazy smile on his face as he lazily supported his chin with one hand. Until the intermission. When the students on the stage came down, people from Beichuan University next door laughed. Are they really from the junior class? Why are they not much different from the high school class? After asking, there was a burst of laughter next door. This made the Yun University junior class students who came down from the stage turn green and red. Lost? Teacher Ho asked indifferently. The junior class students fell silent. They began to understand why Teacher Ho was so strict with them. No matter how talented they were, there would be times when they would be eliminated. They're definitely not from the junior class. One of the students looks like she's about 19 or 20 years old. A girl with a round face said angrily. At this moment, the Beichuan University students next door heard it clearly. Then you should find a student who's 19 or 20 years old to come up together. Our class is not afraid, the junior class student next door said arrogantly. Hey, their class's assistant looks like she's only 19 or 20 years old. Someone suddenly interrupted. This made Bei Yunj, who was playing with her phone, stop. Soon, the assistant next door walked over. She was a girl in her mid-20s. She smiled and said, since that's the case, why don't your school's assistant give it a try? The assistant is so young. We do want to know the standards of your school's teachers. Teacher Ho's body stiffened. Until now, Teacher Ho had always thought that Bei Yunj had gotten in through the back door to become an assistant. She was probably not even at the level of their junior class. There's no need. Bei Yunj did not even raise her head and rejected her calmly. As for the others, they looked at the young assistant from Yun University. She did not seem to care about the outcome of the junior class at all. She could even play the maps of the gods so calmly. A thought immediately appeared in their minds. This assistant is probably a fake. No wonder the standards of Yun University's junior class were so bad. Can anyone from Yun University be an assistant? Someone mocked softly. That's right. Our Beichuan's junior class assistant is already a doctoral student. Half of the students in Beichuan's junior class were students who had failed to get into Yun University. Therefore, they had accumulated a lot of resentment towards Yun University. When the people from Yun University's junior class heard this, they felt like they had been slapped in the face for the first time. It's none of your business. A boy from Yun University's junior class said unhappily. It was not because he had a good relationship with Bei Yunj. He only felt that Bei Yunj was being mocked this time mostly because they couldn't win. In the end, half of the responsibility was on them. That's right. What does my standards have to do with her? She's just an assistant who's temporarily in our class. Another girl glanced at Bei Yunj and said coldly. At this moment, she was a little surprised. This group of people was not hopeless. She could not help but turn to look at Bei Yunj. She was waiting for her reply. Chapter 789. These students weren't too bad. It was just that their maturity couldn't match their high IQ for the time being. You're so protective of your class's assistant. Is it because your class's assistant is really bad? Beichuan's students seized the opportunity to mock them. At this moment, the junior class of Yun University was so angry that their faces turned red. However, before they could speak, the person beside them suddenly stood up. She slowly bit down on the rubber band on her wrist and casually tied up her long hair. Bei Yunj smiled nonchalantly. Her eyes were lazy and impudent. She was also in high spirits. Then thank you, Beichuan, for being willing to give us a chance to redeem ourselves. As soon as she finished speaking, the junior class of Yun University was speechless. Forget it. Don't be calculative. This person will leave tomorrow. Moreover, they couldn't beat her. After Bei Yunj walked out, her bright and beautiful eyes glanced at them casually. She said lightly, how embarrassing. The junior class of Yun University was speechless. These words made the junior class of Yun University furious. However, in the next moment, they saw Bei Yunj standing on the stage. Aren't you going to continue the competition? After Teacher Ho reacted, he didn't know how much confidence Bei Yunj had, so he could only let her do as she pleased. Anyway, she couldn't win this time. However, when the second round of the competition began, she held her face with both hands and looked at Bei Yunj with bright eyes. She looked like a fangirl. Teacher Ho, don't worry. There won't be any accidents this time. Teacher Ho was stunned. You mean, she can win? How can my teacher lose? She smiled. Teacher Ho was speechless. Could he still believe the words of a fangirl like her? On the stage. Looking at the free questions on the screen, Bae Yunj casually pressed 5 questions. Everyone looked at the big screen. Yunqing University chose the 5 questions with the highest scores. This made the legs of the junior class of Yun University go weak. Did this master know that if she wrote a wrong question, she would lose double the points? Otherwise, why would there be so many questions left? Now, she had directly picked the question with the highest score, 5 points per question. The participating students looked at their teaching assistants expressionlessly. This time, he was probably going to get a negative score. They began to suspect that the teaching assistant was holding a grudge against them and was purposely making things difficult for them. This, contestant? Are you sure you want to ask 5 questions at once? The professor below the stage could not help but ask. These questions were set according to the standards of the International Mathematics Competition. At this moment, Si Qingyan happened to take off his earplugs and accidentally saw the person on stage from the corner of his eye. Si Qingyan was speechless. Who the hell put this person up there? Wouldn't Yun University be accused of cheating in the future? Losing wasn't shameful, cheating was. Wait, who put this person up? Si Qingyan stood up and asked. This was the first time that everyone had seen this young and handsome professor with a dark face. On the stage, Bae Yunj glanced at him calmly. It was suggested by our university's teaching assistant. I don't think it's a big deal, the professor from Beichuan next door said generously. Si Qingyan was speechless. When you lose until you can't get up later, you won't think it's a big deal. Wasn't letting Bae Yunj PK a group of kids from the junior class equivalent to a max-level big shot entering a novice village? P.S. Be good and remember the monthly votes. Chapter 790. This doesn't conform to the rules, does it? Si Qingyan gave a fake smile and shot Bae Yunj a look to get her off the stage. However, Bae Yunj glanced at him and only smiled with curved eyes. Si Qingyan was speechless. Why didn't this guy have any self-awareness as a big boss? Why? Are you afraid that your teaching assistant will lose too? The professor smiled. It's okay. It's just a friendly competition. Si Qingyan was speechless. Fine, you asked for it. He had tried his best. On stage. No one rushed to answer the next few big questions. Even the neighboring Beichuan only dared to fight for 3 points at most. Bae Yunj, on the other hand, did not even blink when she answered the questions with the highest scores. 3 5 points, 1 6 points, and 1 7 points. If she could do this, they would call her ancestor in the future. The students of Yun University were silent, but that was what they were thinking. On the other hand, Bae Yunj picked up the chalk and glanced at the question. Then, she started writing without looking up. This smooth process of answering the questions made the Beichuan professor next door, who was originally leisurely, gradually stiffen all over. The Beichuan professor next door took a closer look and his eyes suddenly widened. What is she doing? After a while, Professor Do, who had arrived late, suddenly felt that the person on stage looked familiar. This person, suddenly. Professor Do reacted. Bae Yunj? He quickly turned to ask Si Qingyan, why is she up there? Si Qingyan lowered his head, not daring to look at the cruel massacre that was about to happen. The teaching assistant next door invited me to see this person's ability. Professor Do couldn't help but turn around and look at the professor next door with mixed feelings. They, Beichuan, were getting more and more beaten up. As long as you're happy, Professor Do only said. Love network at this moment. The expression of the teaching assistant next door also changed. She couldn't even smile. Initially, she just wanted to ridicule the people from Yun University, but she didn't expect that this young-looking teaching assistant was actually not someone who got in through the back door. Her solution has a hint of success. A professor who was watching the show laughed and nodded in appreciation. Si Qingyan could not bring himself to smile. Isn't that so? This wasn't just a little bit, this was the real deal. Si Qingyan started to feel heartbroken over Bei Yunji's inhumane behavior. This guy, couldn't he show some kindness to the flower buds that couldn't withstand the wind and rain? Gradually. After watching Bei Yunji finish one question after another, the professor next door could no longer sit still. He tried his best to resist the urge to drag the person on stage off the stage. In his heart, he regretted letting this person go on stage. Who on earth was this person? Even professors like them might not be able to finish writing as quickly as Bei Yunji. Suddenly, Bei Yunji stopped at the third question. She turned her head and asked, "Can I just write the answers?" The professors on the judging panel were speechless. The students of Yun University and Beichuan University were speechless. Were his connections so wild? This was the first time he had met someone who asked him to write down the answer directly. The eyelids of the students of Yun University's junior class twitched. They suddenly had a premonition. They seemed to have underestimated this teaching assistant of theirs. No. Si Qingyan did not care about their old relationship and was impartial. Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows. Her casual gaze made Si Qingyan's hair stand on end, and he turned his head away. But who knew? The next moment, Bei Yunji slowly picked up a piece of chalk with her left hand. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly votes. Chapter 791. Just as everyone was confused, they saw the girl on stage casually glance at the blackboard and start answering the questions with her left hand. At the same time, her right hand was still writing. This scene almost made the Beichuan junior class and professors, who had been smug just now, hold their breaths. Their hearts ached. Was this something a normal person would do? At this moment. Not to mention the people from Beichuan, even the people from Yun University felt suffocated when they saw this scene. On the other hand, the big boss on stage was still a little impatient. Her good handwriting gradually became perfunctory, and only the final answer was concise and clear. Si Qingyan instinctively covered his face with his hand, unable to bear to look at it. He remembered that the first time he saw Bei Yunji's actions, he was also stunned. However, he later found out that Bei Yunji was really a research freak who could come up with the answer and process in her mind just by looking at the question. It was real. It was because the speed of her hands could not keep up with the speed of her brain that she had such an operation. However, in the eyes of others, Bei Yunji was already writing the questions. She was like a humanoid problem-solving machine. When Bei Yunji finished writing the questions, the students from the two schools could not help but wonder if they were really geniuses. Were they not retarded? Was there really no mistake? Then what's with this strange person? It's about time. Bei Yunji casually threw the chalk into the blackboard and slowly returned to her seat. The Yun University students beside her suddenly felt suffocated by the big boss sitting beside them. The minds of the students from Yun University's junior class were in a mess. They felt even more ashamed than the students from Beichuan. Where did Principal Bai find a godly assistant for them? However, in the past few days that Bei Yunji had been working, none of them had asked any academic questions. All of them had been given to Su Zhe. Below the stage, Feng Jiangwen, who was about to record this scene and expose Bei Yunji for getting in through the back door, gradually turned pale. Hanba literature, how is this possible? How is this possible? Feng Jiangwen could not believe it. However, in the next moment, after the professors finished giving the scores, they heard an electronic notification sound in the hall. The system scores are continuously updated. Yunqing University, Beichuan University 31-11, as soon as he finished speaking. The people from Beichuan next door were having a mental breakdown. It was 3:11 just a moment ago, and now it was suddenly 20 points ahead of them. How the hell were they going to chase after her? As for the students from Yun University, they were frozen in place. They felt that this competition was a one-sided slaughter by their assistant professors. There was no need for them to exist. It wasn't until now that the students of Yun University's junior class looked at Bei Yunji's lazy profile that they finally understood, this teaching assistant was truly a god. Perhaps it was because of the huge difference in points, the arena fell into a dead silence. Suddenly, Bei Yunj rested her chin on her hand and smirked as she said slowly, "The teaching assistant next door? Why don't you answer a question too? It's just a friendly match for fun." Hearing this, the expression of the teaching assistant next door instantly turned ugly. To be honest, she didn't even have the confidence to get full marks for the questions that Bei Yunj had just done. How could this be? Since he was the teaching assistant of Yun University's junior class, he wasn't some weakling. His strength could even be said to be terrifying. Then why hadn't this group of students in the junior class improved at all? The expression of the teaching assistant from Beichuan didn't look too good, but at this moment, her students on the stage were all looking at her with hopeful eyes. P.S. I'll continue to update later. Be good and remember the monthly votes. Chapter 792. Beichuan's assistant took a deep breath, stood up, and walked onto the stage. Then, she glanced at the remaining 5-point questions and mentally prepared herself for a few minutes before checking the remaining questions. As long as she answered all 4 5-point questions correctly, she would be able to get back her points. However, she was not confident that she could get back her points. The Beichuan professor below the stage could not help but take a deep breath when he saw that their assistant had finally finished a question but stumbled on the next question. He said, "Assistant, forget it. Come down." The strength of that girl just now was too frightening. It was basically impossible for their school's assistant to win against her. This was something that everyone present could see. When Assistant Du heard this, she pursed her lips and broke the chalk with her fingers. In the end, she left the stage with an ugly expression. No matter how the students behind called out to her. In the end, without any suspense, Yun University's junior class won. However, the atmosphere below the stage made those who did not know better think that Beichuan had won. A Beichuan student patted a Yun University student on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Brother, your class is awesome. Your assistant is so strong that she can even drag an aircraft carrier, right? After a year, you guys still haven't made any progress?" Everyone in Yun University's junior class was silent. This time, their class had won, but it was even more embarrassing than losing. Soon, the other Beichuan students surrounded them. They did not hold a grudge against Bei Yunja's ruthlessness during the competition. Instead, they asked with admiration, "Where did your assistant come from? She's too amazing. This is the first time I've seen someone answer questions with both hands." "That's right. She's so good-looking too," another girl said excitedly. At this moment, there were also boys who asked curiously and mockingly, "You guys are really strange. Even such a powerful assistant can't carry you guys. Did you guys donate your brains behind your assistant's back? Yun University's junior class, you're the one who donated your brains. Your whole family donated their brains. I'm going back to do the questions." One of the boys could not stand it anymore and turned to leave. Hearing this, the others also went back one by one, preparing to stay up late. This competition had completely woken them up. In terms of talent, there was always someone better than you. And their talents were not enough for them to lie down and become winners in life. Even after receiving the medal, Teacher Ho still felt like he was floating. In the corridor, his sharp eyes saw Si Qingyan and immediately went up to grab Si Qingyan's hand. "Professor Si, what's going on?" Then, didn't Yunj get in through the back door?" Si Qingyan thought for a moment and said frankly, "Yes. Mr. Ho. If that's the case, why is she at this level?" When Si Qingyan heard this, he chuckled. "It's precisely because her standards are high and your class is the focus of our school's nurturing that she got in through the back door." When Teacher Ho heard this, he immediately reacted. She was indeed arranged by Principal Bai to enter through the back door. But in reality, this person had entered through the back door, and the final beneficiary was their class, she. Who is she? Teacher Ho's eyelids twitched. He had never thought that the person who got in through the back door would be an ancestor. Could a normal high school student solve a problem with 2 hands? What's more, this was a difficult question from an international mathematics competition. Chapter 793. Don't be anxious. You'll know in the future. Teacher Ho knew that Si Qingyan was not a person who liked to be mysterious, but looking at Si Qingyan's annoying appearance today, he still wanted to hit him. Then will she come to us again in the future? Before Teacher Ho could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Si Qingyan. Old Ho, that's enough. It's already the luck of those brats that she came to be your teaching assistant for a few days. Si Qingyan patted Teacher Ho's shoulder and left with a smile. Hearing this, Teacher Ho wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, when Teacher Ho returned to class, everything on Bei Yunja's table had disappeared. Where's assistant Pei? Teacher Ho asked. Teacher Ho glanced at the people present and saw that they were no longer like before. There was not even a pen on the table and it was filled with a pile of books. He said, she won't study hard. Maybe you'll see her again in the future. With that said, someone said softly, the assistant seems to have left and taken everything. Teacher Ho was silent. Then, someone said carefully, Teacher Ho, will the assistant still teach us in the future? I don't know. Anyway, we definitely can't do it now. Our standards are too bad. No wonder the assistant doesn't like us. What kind of god is the assistant? Can I still reach the level of an assistant in my life if I answer questions with both hands? These conversations did not seem like the usual style of conversations in the junior class. Teacher Ho walked down and was about to clean the classroom when he suddenly realized that the rubbish bin was filled with extracurricular entertainment. He was stunned for a moment before he heard the students discussing softly. How awesome must she be to see the assistant? Bei Yunj was still thinking about how to tell Huashidu about going to our nation tomorrow. Bei Yunj had only wanted to slow down this matter, but she did not expect it to be delayed until today. Bei Yunj was speechless. All of them seemed to have improved a little and were no longer arrogant. Back home, Bei Yunj called out instinctively. After she regained her senses, she glanced at Qin Yu and said after a long while, second brother. Qin Yu did not mind that Bei Yunj called him reluctantly. Instead, when he heard his gu call him brother, he could not help but be overjoyed. He still had to face what he had to face. Bei Yunja's thoughts were uncertain. When she walked into the living room, she looked up and found that Zhong Xinglin and Qin Yu were both there. Elder Zhong? The meaning in Huashidu's eyes was unclear. He glanced at the documents on the table lazily and caressed the silver lighter with his slender and good-looking fingers. Obviously, this information was not something that could be prepared in a day or two. The child was hiding something from him. We're talking about you going to our nation for an exchange, Qin Yu said with a smile. Bei Yunj was stunned and looked at Zhong Xinglin in confusion. But soon she realized that Zhong Xinglin was asking for leave for her. Thinking of this, Bei Yunj subconsciously turned her head and looked at the man beside her who hadn't spoken a word. When Qin Yu looked up, he found that his gu's beautiful eyes were staring straight at Huashidu, who was sitting at the side. Qin Yu, he suddenly had a bad feeling. Then, does brother agree? Bei Yunj asked. Qin Yu said without thinking, what's wrong with agreeing? But in the next moment, he felt that something was going to go out of his expectations. Huashidu slowly buttoned up the loose and sexy buttons on his collar, his dignified eyes calm and elegant. Chapter 794. I also think Elder Zhong's suggestion is very good. Perhaps. This is very important to Union's future development. Zhong Xinglin nodded with a smile. Don't worry, Mr. Hua. We've discussed this with Hengda High School. When the time comes, we will definitely ensure gu's safety and return within 10 days. With that said, Huashidu was about to say something when Qin Yu suddenly spoke. What does that have to do with anything? Coincidentally, I'll be filming an MV in Nili for the next half a month. Gu can come with me. With that said, Qin Yu looked at Bei Yunj. Can second brother go with you? Hearing this, Bei Yunj glanced at Huashidu and said after a while, up to you. Seeing this, Chinyu started to suspect if Master Du had brainwashed his Gu-er. Why did Gu-er listen to him so much? Then this matter is settled. I'll get my assistant to book more plane tickets. Chinyu could not hide the smile on his lips and immediately sent a message to Yang Xian. He asked Yang Xian to arrange for him to go to our nation tomorrow to film. After Yang Xian suddenly received Chinyu's message, he could not help but call him directly, but was quickly hung up. He could only bombard Chinyu with messages. Yang Xian? Yang Xian, dog? Hung up on me? Yang Xian, didn't you say next month? Tomorrow? Why don't you go to heaven? Chinyu's slender fingers typed slowly. Tomorrow. Seeing the message, Yang Xian was speechless. He really wanted to know what had happened to Chinyu today. Half a month ago, Chinyu was still very cold and heartless in front of the company's higher-ups. It's not impossible for me to go to our nation to film an MV. We'll talk about it in 2 months. If it really doesn't work, then forget it. At this thought, Yang Xian took a deep breath and could only work overtime to arrange for Chinyu to go overseas to film an MV tomorrow. Soon. Yang Xian regained his senses. Yang Xian, 2 plane tickets. Whose is the other one? Chinyu, my sister's. My sister is going to be an exchange student. I'll go with her. Seeing this, Yang Xian almost wanted to smash his phone. So, Chinyu had tormented the entire company to work overtime for him just to accompany his sister to school? Was this something a normal person would do? After everything was settled, Chinyu was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he stayed here for the night. Bei Yunj wanted to find an opportunity to talk to Washidu several times, but Chinyu caught her and chatted with her. He didn't look like the cold and aloof best actor at all. He was a living example of a clingy sister complex. Until the next day. Bei Yunj's expression did not look too good, so she decided to ignore Chinyu. It was not until she saw the man in a suit coming downstairs that Bei Yunj dragged her suitcase forward. Brother, are you taking me there today? Washidu glanced at the young lady with bright black eyes in front of him. How could he not know what she was thinking? This child was afraid that he would be angry. Washidu's lips curled up imperceptibly. Then, he only responded faintly. Before Bei Yunj could react, he took Bei Yunj's luggage. Get in the car first. I'll put the things away. Washidu was not angry. He just wanted to tease this child. All these years, Washidu rarely had any negative emotions. He had always lived a methodical life. However, ever since Bei Yunj moved in, it was the first time Washidu realized that he had such bad thoughts. He always wanted to bully this little girl. Okay. Bei Yunj turned around and took Washidu's front passenger seat. Chapter 795. Chinyu, who had been looking at Bei Yunj, was very silent. Soon. Chinyu pursed his lips and walked in front of Washidu. Master Du, Washidu looked up. What's wrong? Do you think that there's something wrong with my gu-er? Chinyu asked tentatively. Washidu paused and glanced at him carelessly. No. No? Then why is gu-er sticking to you and not me? Chinyu asked from the bottom of his heart. Hearing this, the light in the man's eyes darkened. Even the light in his eyes disappeared as he looked at Chinyu carelessly. How do you want her to stick to you? After getting into the car, Washidu turned around and met the other party's clear black eyes. Seatbelt. Washidu had just finished speaking, and before he could fasten his seatbelt, the person beside him suddenly grabbed his hand. The man turned around and her smiling voice sounded in his ear. Brother, I don't think the zipper on my back is closed. Washidu raised an eyebrow. He had a feeling that the little fox in front of him was at it again. Just as expected. In the next moment, Bei Yunj smirked and said, It's actually fine to wear it out like this. It's just a little exposed. Washidu was speechless. Soon. Washidu's deep and pleasant voice sounded in Bei Yunj's ear. Come here. Bae-yunja's lips curled up and she leaned closer to Hwashidu naturally. Before Hwashidu's eyes could land on her fair back, the girl's hands suddenly rested lightly on his shoulder. The faint fragrance on her body lingered at the tip of his nose. The girl's hair rubbed against his sexy Adam's apple and his eyes darkened. 361 reading, brother, I'll be scared if I'm alone overseas. Bae-yunja's eyes curved and she leaned her head on the man's shoulder naturally. Hwashidu also endured it. Only then did his slender and well-defined hand touch the zipper on her back. He lowered his eyes casually and did not look at the dazzling snow-white skin on her back. However, his hand pulled up gently. Seeing that Hwashidu was silent, Bae-yunj deliberately hissed softly in his ear, wanting to see his reaction. As expected, the man's movements paused. Very soon. Before Hwashidu could react, Bae-yunj retreated into his arms. She flipped her long hair in a serious manner. Her bright and beautiful eyes were filled with a lazy smile. Let's drive. Brother, why are you pulling the zipper so slow? Obviously, the child knew that he wasn't angry. He did it on purpose. Bae-yunj thought about the past few times when this man had deliberately teased her after getting drunk. This time, she was in a good mood. However, she did not know that Hwashidu, who was beside her, was staring straight at her. His eyes could not be seen clearly. Yun. Bae-yunj had just turned her head when the man bent down and pressed his face against her neck. His low and hoarse laughter, along with his hot breath on her neck, made her shiver unconsciously. The man's arm gently wrapped around her back. From the window, it looked like he was hugging her. The next moment, his handsome eyes were a little careless and mischievous. His voice was low and lazy. It was frivolous and flirtatious. It made her ears burn. Brother, you don't put on clothes quickly. It's faster to take off clothes. Bae-yunja's heart skipped a beat for some reason. She also felt the man's unconcealed gaze. Immediately after, the man chuckled casually. After straightening up, he slowly raised his hand and fastened Bae-yunja's seatbelt. Bae-yunj, she could not beat him. Chapter 796. Bae-yunj froze unconsciously at the thought of the man's words by her ear just now. She slowly turned around and looked at the scenery outside the window. Hwashidu's voice sounded. Getting you to look for you in Neely in the afternoon. If there's anything, she'll settle it for you. Okay. Bae-yunj leaned against the car window, far away from Hwashidu. Seeing this, Hwashidu smirked silently and stopped teasing her. At the airport. Although Chin Yu's schedule had been changed at the last minute, there were still fans who had received news of Chin Yu's schedule through private channels and were waiting at the airport. Bae-yunja's eyebrows moved. Then, she heard Chin Yu say, Master Du, bring in first. I'll go in and look for her later. Hwashidu naturally took the luggage and placed the paper bag on it. He turned around and glanced at Bae-yunj. Yun. Bae-yunj followed beside Hwashidu and suddenly found this paper bag a little familiar. What's inside? Hwashidu's lips curled up and he handed the paper bag to Bae-yunj. Bae-yunj glanced at him and instinctively lowered her head to open the paper bag. She saw something familiar. Bae-yunj, who met the teddy bear's eyes again, was speechless. What is this? Miss, let me take it for you. Sing-su was already panicking when he saw Hwashidu personally take Bae-yunja's luggage. Now that he found an opportunity, he immediately reached out, wanting to take the paper bag from Bae-yunja's hand. But then, Bae-yunj immediately closed the paper bag and stuffed it back into Hwashidu's hand. She looked up at the handsome and dignified man in front of her, her face expressionless. When did she let him bring this along? The man's thin red lips curled up slightly and he scratched her chin gently. His voice was low and seductive, and his tone was intimate and coaxing. Be good. Our union wants to sleep well. At the security check. Bae-yunj watched as the paper bag was held by the security officer and started to feel numb. Can I trouble Miss to turn around for inspection? My family's miss is thin-skinned, she'll be angry with me later. The man's deep and magnetic voice contained a low chuckle that made people blush and their hearts race. It was frivolous but not frivolous. At this moment, the young ladies behind her, as well as the security inspector on duty, felt their hearts beating wildly when they heard this. This gentleman is too cool. Especially when looking at this mister's face, it was simply too lethal. The girls in the back row were very curious about what was in the paper bag. Okay. The security inspector suppressed his racing heartbeat and turned to open the paper bag again. After seeing what was inside, she couldn't help but smile. Then, she reached out and pinched it to check if there was any problem. After the inspection, the security officer returned the phone to Bae Yunj, who was standing in front of him. He also wanted to pinch the face of this unbelievably beautiful girl. This person was too cute, the contrast was too cute. Her appearance and temperament were clearly unruly, bright and flamboyant. One look and anyone could tell that she was not someone to be trifled with. In the end, there was such a cute little bear in the bag. The security inspector's heart was already bursting with love from these two people. She had a motherly smile on her face and was screaming crazily in her heart. This was too sweet. However, Bae Yunj pulled up her mask and glanced at Hwashidu. Then, she snatched the luggage and left with the paper bag in one hand. Her back view was valiant and cool. Why does Miss seem angry? Sang-soo asked carefully and in confusion. Chapter 797. Sang-soo turned around and was shocked to find that Master Du was actually smiling. Miss Pei was already angry, but he was still smiling. Sang-soo felt his heart skip a beat. At this moment, Bae Yunj had just come out of the washroom. Her backpack seemed to be filled with something as it was a little bulging. Bae Yunj was wearing a mask as she sat beside Chin-yu. Chin-yu smiled. Do you want to eat anything after getting off the plane? No, Zhong. Our school has arranged for the students to stay in the same dormitory. I'm going back directly. Hearing this, Chin-yu was a little disappointed. I see. Then when is free to call second brother? Chin-yu asked. Bae Yunj replied, okay. Seeing this, Chin-yu's thin lips curled up. After feeling that someone was taking photos of them, he took off his sunglasses. In the next moment, before Bae Yunj could react, a dark gaze suddenly covered her eyes. Chin-yu had put on his sunglasses. Bae Yunj had just looked up when she saw Chin-yu's ink-like eyes. There was a gentle smile on his face as he supported his head lazily. He was a handsome young man with a tall frame. He was wearing a loose black t-shirt that made his skin look cold and fair. There were black English words tattooed on the inside of his arm that was supporting his chin. His posture was lazy and arrogant. Why is my so good-looking? After Bae Yunj regained her senses, she realized that Chin-yu was preventing her from being photographed. The fans beside them almost screamed. Brother Yu was always cold and indifferent in front of the camera. Why was he so good at flirting in private? Several die-hard fans had already recognized that this was their brother Yu's precious sister. His sister's appearance could be seen even with sunglasses. She was extremely beautiful. Parkway, they were indeed biological. Their entire family had such strong genes. At this moment, Bae Yunj was sitting inside and playing with her phone. She had already received more than 10 messages. Bae Yunj replied to Hwashidu first before continuing to look at the others' messages. She clicked into Zhong Xinglin's chat and saw that Zhong Xinglin wanted to tell Marcus and the others about her arrival in Country R today. Bae Yunj immediately rejected him. If Marcus came, there was no guarantee that Titch and Jasmine would come as well. When the time came, Delaney would know the news and she would have another problem. Thinking of this, Bae Yunj raised her eyebrows. She wanted to go back as soon as possible even before she arrived in Country R. Next, Bae Yunj had just exited the chat when she saw Du Xiao's message. Du Xiao, Gu, did you apply for leave to come to country R? Bei Yunja's eyelids twitched. She had no idea where the news had come from. Then, she continued to read the messages. Du Xiao, just in time. Come to the association to take the test when you're free. Du Xiao, train hard and strive to get the C-level qualification directly. In the International Musicians Association, only Du Xiao and some veteran gods who had retired from the association were A-class. The other students with the best aptitudes were B or C grade. And there were only 3 people who had obtained B-class qualifications. As for A-class, only musicians who could be considered a milestone of an era were qualified to obtain this level. Everyone who could obtain A-class had to have at least 3 songs that were recognized by the industry. However, this year, Bei Yunj had 2 songs that had been sent to the judges. Bei Yunj was not in the mood and replied to him slowly. Got it. Du Xiao, who saw this message, was also very worried. He could clearly feel that Bei Yunja's mind was not on music. Chapter 798. In Du Xiao's opinion, with Bei Yunja's talent, it was not difficult for her to get an A rank. However, Bei Yunja's output was low and she was still unwilling to put in effort. At this rate, he did not know when she would be able to get an A rank. This time, even a B rank was difficult for Du Xiao. Bei Yunj did not care about this. She only read the documents for a few hours. After her phone ran out of battery, she closed her eyes to rest. Seeing this, Qin Yu, who was beside her, smirked and gently took Bei Yunja's phone to charge it for her. More than 10 hours later. After getting off the plane. Because Qin Yu was too popular, his fans overseas had surrounded him. He could only watch as Zhong Xinglin and the rest took Bei Yunj away. But not long after. Qin Yu suddenly realized something. Was Henda's resources that good? Gu was actually led by old Mr. Zhong when she went overseas for an exchange? Besides, why weren't there any other students in the team? Qin Yu could not help feeling puzzled and walked out of the airport quickly. In the car. I really didn't expect Bei Yunja's brother to be Qin Yu. He's so handsome. Other than Bei Yunj, the only 2 female researchers present could not help but discuss. Isn't that so? He even bought plane tickets for us. He's handsome and rich. The other female researcher, who was younger and in her early 30s, was already staring at him with starry eyes. Zhong Xinglin and Si Qingyan were speechless. They really did not dare to tell anyone else. If Qin Yu had not insisted on accompanying Bei Yunj, the higher-ups would have already decided to charter a plane to send them to our nation because of Bei Yunj. Later, before Zhong Xinglin could finish speaking, the car suddenly stopped and everyone in the car almost cursed. The driver started to panic. There are many cars blocking the way. Hearing this. At first, everyone thought that it was a traffic jam. Later, they realized that something was wrong. Someone was specially blocking them. Suddenly. Ling Du's e-book. Si Qingyan asked coldly, Master Pei, are they here to assassinate you? Bei Yunj, then, Si Qingyan muttered to himself, no, this isn't a confidentiality measure for you. It's already very strict. How could anyone know that she's in our car? The others also had the same doubts and wanted to know the truth. And not long after. After director he got out of the car, he got into the car again. He looked at Bei Yunj. Gu, he's here for you. Alarm bells rang in everyone's hearts. Quick, hide Gu, Bai Mingzhang hurriedly ordered. And not long after. After director he got out of the car, he got into the car again. He looked at Bei Yunj. Gu, he's here for you. Alarm bells rang in everyone's hearts. Quick, hide Gu, Bai Mingzhang hurriedly ordered. Bei Yunj, at this time, the researchers on the bus were in a panic, not knowing where to hide such a big living person. Then, He's eyelids twitched. It's someone who knows Gu, and wants Gu, to go over. He reminded her, no. At this moment, everyone finally realized that that person didn't know Bae Yunja's identity. I know him. Bae Yunj raised an eyebrow with interest. After getting out of the car, Bae Yunj was speechless when she saw more than 10 imposing black cars. She probably knew which family was looking for her. This strong aura of a wealthy family, just as expected. Bae Yunj had just been arranged to get into the car when she saw an old man in formal clothes. Chapter 799. The next moment, Bae Yunj heard the old man ask, "You're the bad girl that Shidu raised?" The first time he spoke to her, he was cheated of hundreds of millions. Fernand's had a deep impression of this guy. "Where did you get the news from, sir?" Bae Yunj curled her lips lazily. She did not mind Fernand's angry look. Instead, she asked leisurely. After all, with her brother's personality, he would not take the initiative to mention her to this person. "You want to know?" The old man's expression was cold as the corners of his mouth twitched and he asked coldly. Bae Yunj raised her eyebrows and did not want to talk anymore. "Can I go back now?" When the old man heard this, he immediately became angry. "Why don't you respect the old and love the young at all? Have you ever seen a bad girl respect the old and love the young?" Bae Yunj seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, the corners of her lips curled up as she said leisurely, "In this line of work, we like to run away after cheating money." These words made the old man speechless. He looked at Bae Yunj in shock. It was also the first time the butler had met such a young girl with a temperament that he couldn't figure out. Why would Master Do like such a girl? Was it because she was good-looking? "How dare you?" I. Fernand's was speechless. Suddenly, Bae Yunja's eyes curved as she asked, "Grandpa, I'm hungry. Can I go to your place for a meal?" Fernand's was stunned for a moment before he instinctively said, "Sure." However, after Bae Yunj finished her call and spoke to Zhong Xinglin, Fernand's finally realized why he was so good to this bad girl. OK Composition Network Bayesian Manor. The European-style hall was magnificent. Outside the bright and tall windows, there were roses and green plants. Fernand's crossed his arms and looked unhappily at Bae Yunj, who was eating dinner. After a while, Bae Yunj stabbed a piece of steak with a silver fork. She glanced at the schedule that Zhong Xinglin had arranged for her as she slowly chewed on it. "Why are you playing with your phone while eating?" Fernand snatched her phone and put it somewhere Bae Yunj could not get to it. Bae Yunj stopped eating. "Have you not eaten for 10 years? Why didn't Shidu teach you to eat properly?" Fernand snatched Bae Yunja's porcelain plate, picked up the unused knife and fork, and carefully cut it. She placed the cut steak on the white plate in front of Bae Yunj and muttered with a frown, "What's wrong with eating like this? You better eat properly." In fact, although Bae Yunja's table manners were not very proper, she was good-looking and her movements were elegant. However, the old man was born in a noble family and had followed the most meticulous etiquette his entire life. Hence, when the butler asked the servants to bring in a few more dishes, this was the scene that greeted his eyes. The old man, who had never served anyone in his 8 lifetimes, was seriously cutting the steak for Bae Yunj. When he saw that Bae Yunj had eaten too much, he even handed her a glass of water. The butler was speechless. If the young masters in the family saw this scene, they would probably think that she was the old man's illegitimate daughter. "Don't just eat meat. You have to eat more vegetables too." Fernand's forgot the reason why he was looking for Bae Yunj and instructed the butler, "Prepare fruit juice for her next time. She's still growing." The butler said, "Okay. Didn't he say that he wanted to intimidate Master Do's little girl? What are you doing? Using the coldest way to feed her the most delicious food while Master Do doesn't know?" Chapter 800. It was not until Bae Yunj finished eating that Fernand's nodded in satisfaction. "That was more like it. Sir, the room prepared for Miss has also been arranged." The butler reminded him appropriately. Hearing this, Bae Yunj said, "No need. I have a place to stay. Thank you, Mr. Butler." Fernand frowned and looked at Bei Yunj. You want to stay outside? Yes, I'm here as an exchange student this time. I'm staying in the student dormitory, Bei Yunj said calmly. Fernand was silent for a moment before he said, call someone to pick you up at 1:00 that night. Neely is not as safe as Yunqing at night. Bei Yunj replied, okay. Fernand nodded in satisfaction and said, there's a study on the second floor. Are you going to do your homework? Bei Yunj looked up at him. I don't do homework. Fernand? Very good, very self-righteous. Fernand comforted himself silently in his heart. It was okay. It didn't matter if he was a bad student. It was already rare enough for Shidu to like women. What else could he be picky about? Fernand had always seen the younger generation in the family. Most of them were mature and wanted to study every day. A few hedonistic sons did not dare to say in front of Fernand that they did not like to study or do homework. Hence, Fernand thought for a long time but did not know how to get along with the bad students. He could only say, there's a television over there. Go watch it. The butler, if this continued, Fernand's biological granddaughter would be proven to be true. Bei Yunj's eyes twitched. Okay. Soon. Bei Yunj sat on the sofa on the other side, randomly picked a program, and read documents on her phone. Come and read. Fernand, who was not far away, looked at Bei Yunj with a numb gaze. It was obvious that she was hopeless. Then, just as Fernand was about to go upstairs to calm down, hearty laughter suddenly sounded from the door. Fernand, I just came to look for you and you're already going upstairs? Fernand turned around and saw old Mr. Angel with his beloved granddaughter beside him. Why did you bring Lilia here so late at night? Fernand still had a displeased look on his face. Angel was also used to his old friend's sour face. He smiled vaguely. Didn't I hear that something happened to your family again? Fernand glanced at him and said indifferently, your information is really accurate. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pry into your family's situation. But Fernand, I've seen that child a few times. He's very outstanding. Are you willing to send him away? Angel asked. What happened to the Fernand's family was nothing else. Instead, someone had waited for too long and was impatient. They wanted to force Fernand to hand over his real power and take over as soon as possible. However, what he did not expect was that even if Fernand did not interfere in the family's affairs, his methods were still ruthless. They directly captured him and threw him into a city where his power was marginalized. This was no different from forcing him to withdraw from the battle for the position of successor. As I said, I already have a suitable successor in mind. Fernand glanced at him unhappily. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and scolded, keep your voice down. There are children watching TV over there. Mr. Angel, subsequently. Angel and Lilia were both curious. Fernand was famous for being strict with the younger generation of the family. Which junior was watching TV and was actually so favored? Lilia took a few glances but could not see anyone. Chapter 801. He turned around. Angel smiled and said, actually, I brought Lilia here to discuss something with you. When Fernand looked at him, she heard him say, marriage alliance. How about marrying your heir? If this was in the past, Fernand would have agreed quickly. But at this moment, Fernand's eyelids twitched. He glanced at the person watching TV not far away and his lips twitched. No need. With that said, Fernand turned around and wanted to go upstairs, but was stopped by Angel. Why aren't you willing? Angel raised his voice. Lilia, who was beside him, was also surprised and frowned. She liked Washidu and knew that he had a woman by his side. However, could it be that Fernand would admit to that woman? What's the use of me being willing? I'm not the one getting married. Fernand rolled his eyes and thought for a moment before saying, besides, I don't lack a granddaughter-in-law. What do you mean? Don't tell me you think that the Delaney family is doing better now and don't like my family? Angel frowned. Now that the Delaney group had the help of that new scientific researcher, its development could be said to have improved by leaps and bounds. However, our nation's plate was only so big. If the Delaney family ate more, there would naturally be families who ate less. And this unlucky family happened to be the Angel family. After all, Angel and Delaney were the closest to each other in most industries. This was like celebrities clashing. There would always be one who would be eliminated. Boring. Fernand snorted. At this moment, Lilia said, "Grandpa Fernand, you know that I like Shidu very much. Can't you give me a chance?" This time, if not for the fact that the Delaney family had jumped into the four big families and endangered the Angel family's position, her grandfather and her aunt, Elena, would not have agreed to her taking the initiative to fight for the marriage alliance. Seeing that Fernand did not relent, Angel said in a low voice, "Fernand, that person from the Higgins family is back." Hearing this, Fernand turned to look at him. What? Shang Yan is back. Angel's thoughts were heavy. I heard that he has the intention to work with the Delaney family. If that was the case, wouldn't the Higgins family be preparing to make a comeback? What about the Angel family? Sooner or later, they would be kicked out of the four great clans. Fernand was silent for a moment. Angel, if you're really worried about losing your position, you should spend more time on the business. Besides, your daughter is so outstanding. What are you afraid of? Elena is outstanding, so I handed the family over to her early on. Angel wanted to say something but hesitated. But Elena was Angel's daughter, and she was talented in business. He was proud of it. However, Elena's methods were too cruel. In fact, after taking over the clan, he even set up quite a few shady businesses. Even after Elena took over the family had prospered day by day. But Angel was also afraid that one day, his family would be defeated by Elena. The variable in the Delaney family is because of that young researcher. Or, do you want to try changing the research team? Fernand thought for a moment. Angel's eyelids twitched. Even if we switch, it'll be difficult to compare to that new scientific researcher. She was nominated for both Farizik and Busaka this year. So powerful? Fernand was surprised. How old is the new noble? It is said that he is very young, in his 30s. Chapter 802. So young? Fernand was shocked. I heard that she's from country A. To be nominated for the highest awards in the academic world at such a young age, she was indeed a top-notch genius. At this moment, Bei Yunj, who was on the sofa, was reading Tich and Jasmine's report. He was immersed in self-doubt and did not notice that someone was discussing behind him. Angel smiled bitterly. That's right. I'm afraid there's no other scientific research genius like her in our nation. With that said, Angel had thought that Fernand would at least comfort him. Unexpectedly, this old thing was silent for a long time before he sighed. How good would it be if she was from my family? Angel's eyelids twitched. Fernand still told the truth. Shidu has an ordinary girl by his side. Although she doesn't have a good temperament and isn't ambitious, she's beautiful. With that, Fernand nodded affirmatively, as if he was hypnotizing himself. Yes, it's good that she's beautiful. Heartless old man, in his next life. The marriage is feasible, but Shidu has other arrangements. Why don't you choose someone else? From Fernand's words, it was obvious that his grandson, who had the worst relationship with Fernand, held a high position in his heart. Then, Angel was in disbelief. You're willing to accept this? Why do I have to worry so much? Isn't it fine as long as he's happy? At first, he thought that this was a favored junior of the Fernand's family. Yes. Fernand raised his chin and gestured for them to look at the television. There, she's over there. You can greet her, but don't scare her. Angel suddenly looked up. That's the girl Shidu is raising? Continue watching TV. Fernand immediately said. Fernand coughed lightly. Perhaps it was because the voice had suddenly become louder, Bei Yunj could not help but raise his eyebrows and glance at Fernans and the rest. Fernans gave them a fake smile. Yes, she doesn't like to do homework, so we can only let her watch TV. Angel. She was indeed not motivated. Bei Yunj was silent for a moment before he turned around. At this moment. Alright, I'll send you guys off first. Fernans was about to get rid of her when he suddenly heard Lilia say, Miss, do you still remember me? He was really treating his granddaughter as his own granddaughter. However, she was indeed beautiful. Her beauty was irresistible to both the East and West. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. I remember. Lilia clenched her fists. She didn't expect it to be her. Hearing this, Bei Yunj turned around and saw a blonde woman. It was the female celebrity who had knocked on the door to look for Washidu when she was video chatting with him at the hotel. Bei Yunj glanced at her and then looked away. International exchange student. Really? What a coincidence. I'm a student at Neely University. I wonder if I have the chance to meet you at Neely University? Old Mr. Fernans actually accepted such a person. Miss, is this your first time in country R? What are you here for? Lilia did it on purpose. She remembered Fernans's words just now and could roughly guess that the girl in front of her was just lucky that Washidu had taken a fancy to her. She did not think that Bei Yunj could be an exchange student at Neely University. However, Lilia did not notice that as soon as she finished speaking, Fernan's expression darkened. Chapter 803. Isn't it very late? Bad girl, call your teacher and get someone to pick you up. Fernans interrupted her and said calmly. This made Lilia's expression stiffen. She instinctively looked at Fernans. It was not difficult to sense that Fernans was protecting Bei Yunj. She pursed her lips and was about to say something when Angel stopped her. Bei Yunj replied, okay. But unexpectedly, Bei Yunj called Zhong Xinglin and the rest several times, but no one picked up. Didn't he say that he was coming to pick her up an hour ago? However, Fernans was very happy to see her. You can't get through? It's fine if you can't get through. I've already prepared a room for you on the second floor. Butler, get someone to bring her upstairs. The butler's eyelids twitched. After answering, he immediately arranged for the maid to bring Bei Yunj upstairs. Only Angel and Lilia did not look too good. On the other side, near the pier, Si Qingyan held a cigarette between his fingers and looked at the two drunk old men expressionlessly. He did not notice that there were a few missed calls on his phone. If he had not stopped him just now, the news the next day would have been, Zhong Xinglin and Marcus, the pioneers of the computing field in country A and R, suspected of jumping into the sea to commit suicide. Before Si Qingyan could take out his phone, he suddenly heard Marcus crying in grief and indignation. Why can Longjun pick it up but I can't? Boo-hoo, why am I not her grandfather? Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched, and he gave up on playing with his phone. Good lord, he was so drunk that he had designs on Bei Yunj? Soon. Marcus's words resonated with Zhong Xinglin. The two of them hugged and cried sadly. Si Qingyan took a deep breath. The two of you left? It's already very late. We still have work to do tomorrow. At this moment, Zhong Xinglin and Marcus ignored Si Qingyan. Instead, after crying for a long time, Zhong Xinglin suddenly looked up and patted Marcus's back, comforting him. Marcus, you are. Marcus was greatly moved and comforted each other. Zhong, you too. Si Qingyan was speechless. Shouldn't you ask Bei Yunj if you're the same? He should really record this scene and show it to Bei Yunj. However, in the blink of an eye, Si Qingyan realized that something was wrong with the two of them. Crooked? How are you? I'm your grandfather. Marcus held the phone and started to giggle. Si Qingyan had a bad feeling. Marcus, what are you doing? Marcus ignored Si Qingyan and just leaned against Zhong Xinglin in a drunken stupor. The corners of the person's mouth twitched. This is the Neely police station. Please don't use the line. What did he say? Marcus turned his head and asked. Zhong Xinglin, he said, burp, he's from the Neely police station. Si Qingyan's body trembled and he immediately went forward to snatch Zhong Xinglin and Marcus's phones. Were the two of them unhappy about not making the headlines tonight? Did they have to make such a big fuss? Si Qingyan only sent the two of them back at 1:00 in the morning. On the other side. Fue Rose Manor. Lilia bit her lip and walked into the hall aggressively in her high heels. Why, are you bullied? Then you can marry someone else. The woman in the purple dress smiled disapprovingly. Fernans likes that girl a lot. Why? How can I not compare to that girl? Lilia could not hold back her anger and sneered. She's so ordinary. I wonder if those people from the Fernans family are blind. Chapter 804. Lilia turned around and saw that Elena was unmoved. She said, Auntie, I'm indignant. She's just an ordinary high school student. A high school student? Why did she come to Neely? Elena turned around and asked. She's an exchange student, but she's probably an exchange student from some random university. Lilia's tone was mocking. A top school like Neely University would not casually recruit high school exchange students. Elena raised an eyebrow. Not long after, she sneered. All right, isn't this easy to deal with? In Neely, accidents are the most common. Hearing this, Lilia froze. Auntie, you're talking about, if he's no longer around, how can I snatch him from you? Elena asked slowly. Lilia's expression changed. Auntie, there's no need. Elena looked at her sideways and smiled coldly. Lilia, don't you want that man? I'll snatch him back from her, Auntie. Lilia said in a firm tone, and hurriedly ran upstairs to give Strength Literature Network. Elena's tone was mocking. She's also useless. Stupid and timid. The next day, when Si Qingyan went to pick up Bei Yunj according to the address, he couldn't help but be surprised. This address was a famous wealthy district in Neely. And the Bai Sheng Manor was home to the number one family, the Fernans family. How did Bei Yunj know the Fernans family? After walking out, Bei Yunj looked at Si Qingyan. Why didn't you come to pick me up yesterday? Si Qingyan. Marcus and Elder Zhong were drunk yesterday and couldn't leave. Bei Yunj thought about the person at home who could not hold his liquor well and nodded in understanding. Let's go to the Computing Institute in our nation first. I still have something to look for Titch and the rest. Bei Yunj sat in the front passenger seat and said slowly. Si Qingyan was silent for a long time. Actually, the professor of the mathematics department of Neely University has asked you out several times. Bei Yunj turned to look at him and said word by word, no. Si Qingyan, all right, sorry for the trouble. Don't make trouble for me. Bei Yunj lowered her head, her tone casual and indifferent. It wasn't because he had a feud with the Neely University mathematics professor. It was because there were many professors in the mathematics department of Neely University. In the past month, more than 10 professors had added Bei Yunj's private account, but the rest had not. Bei Yunj saw different professors asking her almost every day when she would change her major and if she had any intention of joining the math department at Neely University. If she went to Neely University's mathematics department today, with those people's persistence, she didn't even know if she could leave Neely University. However, Si Qingyan looked down and did not say anything. But an hour later, Bei Yunj glanced at the red brick buildings outside the window. Young men and women were coming and going. Not far away, there were green rivers and white geese, reflecting the blue sky and clouds. She realized that something was wrong. Where is this? Si Qingyan bit the bullet and continued driving. Neely University. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. Stop the car. Master Pei, don't. We've already discussed this with the principal of Neely University. Si Qingyan ignored Bei Yunj's cold gaze. Soon. Bei Yunj suddenly smiled. You're not stopping, right? Si Qingyan suddenly had an ominous feeling, suddenly. The steering wheel in his hand was grabbed by a cold and beautiful hand and turned around. F***CK, wait a minute. What are you doing? Stop. Si Qingyan could not win against Bei Yunj and saw that the car was about to fall into the clear river beside him. Chapter 805. The next moment. Si Qingyan hurriedly grabbed the steering wheel and turned the car back steadily. However, the girl sitting next to him opened the door and jumped out of the car without anyone noticing. Bei Yunj? Si Qingyan immediately stopped the car. When he got out of the car, she was already gone. It was over. Old Master Zhong was going to kill him when he woke up. Si Qingyan rubbed his glabella and called the people from Nili University. Vast sky-green field, by the river. The exquisite-looking girl pursed her lips. Her beautiful gray eyes were emotionless. What attracted attention was her thick white curly hair. Caitlin, who exactly is your father? The men and women surrounding her had unfriendly smiles on their faces as they asked casually, could he really be a rapist? Caitlin hugged the folder in her hand and said coldly, get lost. Oh, are you angry? How about I let you go after a smoke? The young man deliberately stood in front of Caitlin and handed the cigarette in his hand to her with evil intentions. Caitlin looked up and wanted to slap his hand away. But then, she heard a gloomy laugh in her ear. Your flower protector isn't here today. Can you leave after offending me? Smoke one and I'll let you go. How about that? The people beside them were watching the show. They turned on their cameras and prepared to film this scene. Caitlin's eyes were cold and murderous as her thoughts ran wild. However, not long after, she clenched her fists, took a deep breath, and reached out to the cigarette the young man handed her. The people around were watching a good show. But suddenly, there was a rustling sound from the water. Everyone subconsciously looked in that direction and suddenly saw a figure break out of the water. They were so frightened that they instinctively took half a step back. However, on closer inspection, they realized that the person was too beautiful. Her black hair was wet, her lips were red, and her teeth were white. Her eyes were wild but charming, and her sharp chin was still dripping with water. Ebook workshop, everyone was scared out of their wits and could not react. Why did a person jump out of the river? Bei Yunj glanced at them casually and her gaze landed on Caitlin. Before Caitlin could react, a clear and arrogant voice rang in her ears. May I borrow a cigarette, classmate? Caitlin was stunned. Before she could react, Bei Yunj had already walked to her side, took her cigarette, and was ready to leave. At this moment, Caitlin's mind was still filled with the scene of Bei Yunj breaking out of the water. This was the first time she had seen such a beautiful girl. Stop. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Who told you to grab the cigarettes? The young man was furious. He looked at Bei Yunj in front of him. He didn't expect something like this to happen. They were using this cigarette to tease Caitlin, but someone actually dared to steal it so blatantly. At this very moment, Bei Yunj lazily bit the cigarette butt. After a while, his eyes dimmed. There was something wrong with this cigarette. Moments later, she stopped in her tracks and turned around. Her bright and flamboyant eyes were still unruly as she asked leisurely, "What's the matter?" You, looking at Bei Yunj biting the cigarette, he was speechless. All right, hurry up and leave. The young man could also tell that this person was not someone to be trifled with, so he did not want to complicate matters. However, after that, Bei Yunj's eyes landed on the silent Caitlin. She walked leisurely in front of Caitlin and suddenly laughed. There seemed to be light in her eyes. Caitlin looked up and saw this scene. Bei Yunj shook the cigarette in his hand and said with a smile, "Classmate, a cigarette in exchange for a wish." Chapter 806. Caitlin's butterfly eyelashes trembled as she pursed her pale pink lips. Bei Yunj could see the cold vigilance in her eyes. Her eyes curved and she couldn't help but lean over and joke, "Are you going to leave me alone? Do you want to elope with me?" Suddenly, Caitlin's heart skipped a beat as she looked up at the person in front of her. But before she could regain her senses, someone suddenly grabbed her wrist and ran forward. The people behind immediately reacted. She was taken away. "This guy took her away," someone exclaimed. Instantly, the young man flew into a rage. "Am I King blind? If you see her, why aren't you chasing after her?" On the huge campus street, the people behind were desperately chasing after her. The people in front, one of them had a smile on her face and an unruly look in her eyes. The other was blushing and almost out of breath. A few minutes later, Caitlin stopped and held her knees with both hands, panting. I can't take it anymore." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. At this moment, the people behind were almost catching up. "Hurry up and leave." "I'll be fine." Caitlin felt a little pain in her heart and her expression was a little ugly. However, before Bei Yunj could look, a sharp voice sounded. "Run? Where are you going?" Bei Yunj looked up and saw a group of people coming over aggressively. She laughed casually and walked towards them. She stretched the joints of her arms and said slowly, "You guys are the ones who came looking for me." Hearing that, the young man sneered. Before he could say anything, the unbelievably beautiful and exquisite girl in front of him punched him in the abdomen. Cold sweat broke out on his face and the veins on his forehead bulged. He howled in pain and fell to the ground. This scene made the scalps of the others tingle. "Line up one by one if you want to die. I'm in a hurry to change my clothes." Bei Yunj moved her neck uncomfortably. Her tone was cold and impatient as she slowly wrung the water from the corner of her clothes. This scene aroused the anger of the crowd. The first person to react rushed forward and threw a punch at her. But the next moment, however, the beautiful and thin girl in front of him dodged the attack even faster and grabbed the man's neck with one hand. Then, he kicked him in the abdomen with his knee. The young man's face contorted as he clutched his abdomen and knelt in front of Bei Yunj. This scene also dispelled the thoughts of the others in the group battle. This person was too ruthless. "Aren't you going to get lost?" Bei Yunj looked up casually and asked with a faint smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the remaining 4 or 5 people ran away like a swarm of bees. Bei Yunj glanced at the girl next to her. There was something wrong with the cigarette just now. "Don't pick it up so casually next time." After that, Bei Yunj was about to leave Neely University. "It's half an hour from here to school." The person behind him suddenly spoke. When Bei Yunj turned her head, she heard Caitlin ask with her head lowered, "It'll only take 10 minutes to get to my dorm." In the dormitory, the roommates had just returned and pushed open Caitlin's door. They did not expect to see a girl with long, curly black hair. She was bright and beautiful and was wearing a white shirt. Her aura was impossible to ignore. You are," the roommate was about to stutter. Coincidentally, Caitlin walked out and handed Bei Yunj a clean white towel. "This is unused." "Thank you." Bei Yunj greeted everyone lazily and went to dry her hair. Just now, when she met Bei Yunj's eyes, her face inexplicably heated up. She turned around and asked, "Caitlin, this is?" "P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket." Chapter 807. If it was another woman who appeared in Caitlin's bedroom, they would not have thought too much. But the girl who had just walked into the bathroom was too ostentatious. She was born with a playful and lazy gaze, but it made one's heart race. Her lethality was too great. She was attractive to both men and women. Appearing in the bedroom in a loose white shirt, it was very easy for one's imagination to run wild. Caitlin reacted. She did not know Bei Yunj's name either. When Bei Yunj came out, she asked, "What's your name?" When her roommates heard this, their minds were in a mess. They didn't even know her name and she dared to bring her to the dormitory? What was the relationship between these two? Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj wiped her neck slightly. At this moment, Caitlin turned around and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Her roommate reacted and said excitedly, "I heard that a big shot came to our school today." It was common for Neely University to see the big shots that everyone was talking about. But there were very few big shots that could make the students so excited. Caitlin looked up. "Who is it?" "The one who was nominated by Busaka and Farizik." "Ah." The girl could not help but be excited. "I don't know if there will be a speech, but the school is clearing the place today. Unrelated people are not allowed to enter." At this moment, Caitlin turned to look at Bei Yunj suspiciously. "How did you get in?" She was sure that this was not a student from their school. "International exchange student." Bei Yunj responded easily. Before Caitlin could say anything, the person beside her suddenly said, "Caitlin, do you want to go to the math department with us? What if you see her in person?" They were excited, but they did not notice that the girl beside them glanced at them and continued to wipe her black hair. "No, I have to go to class." Caitlin was a student of the chemistry department and had classes in the afternoon. When the others heard this, they were a little disappointed. "Which book website at this moment?" Caitlin turned and asked, "Do you want to go with me? You probably won't be able to leave Neely University before 4:30. This was a tradition of Neely University. Every time a big shot of this level came back, the school would be heavily guarded. "Sure." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and agreed without thinking. On the way, Caitlin and Bei Yunj's figures attracted the attention of many people. When he sat in the classroom, he heard many people talking about it. Why did the school bell bring a girl to class? Family member. What? A girl? Wait, the one next to him is also beautiful. This is the first time I've seen such a beautiful face. They were all curious about the identity of the person beside the campus bell. She was even more eye-catching than the campus bell of Neely University. Go to sleep. Caitlin deliberately found a seat at the back so that Bei Yunj would not be seen by the professor. Bei Yunj hummed in response and pulled her jacket to cover her head skillfully. Caitlin, his skillful movements made him seem like a veteran. 20 minutes later, when the professor entered, the classroom fell completely silent. Unfortunately, he noticed the unknown object covered by the jacket at a glance. Caitlin, who had always been cold and indifferent, was nervous for the first time. She hesitated for a moment and pushed Bei Yunj beside her. Bei Yunj? Bei Yunj could not sleep well either. She quickly took off her coat and looked lazy with her fluffy hair. When the professor saw Bei Yunj's appearance clearly, his gaze changed and he sneered. Chapter 808. Caitlin suddenly realized that this professor did not like people from Country A. In his class, the exchange students in their class were often teased and ostracized. Caitlin frowned without batting an eyelid. At this moment, a young man suddenly walked over. He was panting. "Miss Caitlin, I heard that Knox and the others are looking for you. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Caitlin said calmly. Only then did the young man realize that there was someone beside Caitlin. She's sitting with me. You can find a seat." After saying that, Caitlin looked at the professor on stage. The young man was silent for a moment. He looked at Bei Yunj again and finally walked to the back row. "I thought that there wouldn't be people from Country A taking my class. I didn't expect me to be so popular." The professor on the stage glanced at the 3 or 4 people from Country A below the stage. The 3 people from Country A in the middle row clenched their fists and pursed their lips without saying anything. Caitlin turned sideways and said softly, "Professor Bress doesn't like people from Country A because his ex-wife ran away with one of them." When Bei Yunj heard this, her lips curled up with interest. "He shouldn't make things difficult for you," Caitlin comforted. Although Professor Bress hated people from Country A, he wouldn't have such a conflict with girls. Okay. Bei Yunj replied casually. Not long after, Professor Bress had already started his lesson. He followed the slides and went through the content as usual. After that, it was time for the group speeches. Caitlin was in the third group. When Caitlin went on stage to prepare for her speech, she heard Professor Bress suddenly ask, Fei Ku, what contribution did the student next to you make to your group? Caitlin turned to look at him and said calmly, She's my friend, Professor Bress. Professor Bress glanced at Bei Yunj. After a short silence, he turned his head away. Then, after Caitlin finished her research report, it was the turn of the three people from Country A. Some students also had the mentality of watching a show. During their speech, Professor Bress interrupted several speeches as usual and asked questions. It made them forget their words nervously, unable to answer, and started to make a fool of themselves. Hearing the laughter around her, Bei Yunj looked up at the PowerPoint presentation on the stage. Oh my god, are you guys really doing your homework seriously? Oh, I'm sorry. Perhaps I shouldn't blame you for the bad homework this time. I heard that the level of scientific research in your country is still at the level of our country 20 years ago. As soon as Professor Bress said this, most of the students' eyes became more intense, but Caitlin and a small number of students frowned. You won't be able to keep up with the teaching standards of our school, Professor Bress said. Suddenly, a brown-haired girl's voice fell into everyone's ears. Professor Bress, I heard that Country A will be coming to our school today. Is that true? Professor Bress's face froze. Without a doubt, the existence of the old school in Country A was a slap in the face. They had always believed that Country A could not produce top researchers. But for some reason, someone popped out. The professors from the computer science and mathematics departments praised him to the skies. The school was also looking for all kinds of connections to poach him into the school. However, he seemed to be very cold to Country A's mathematics circle because of the matter of Country A's Computing Institute. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 809. Professor Bress's expression did not look too good. I don't know. The professors of the chemistry department had never heard of this news, and they did not know how these students found out. Alright, let's continue with the class. Professor Bress did not want to continue this topic, so he simply diverted everyone's attention. Professor Bress liked to interact in class. After half an hour of speaking, two big questions appeared on the slide. We haven't even talked much in class, why are they already giving questions? There were also people complaining below. Caitlin quickly picked up the draft paper and prepared to calculate the questions. She even leaned close to Bei Yunj and asked, Do you want to try? Bei Yunj glanced at it and then played with her phone. She rejected politely. No. Of course, this scene was also very eye-catching in Professor Bress's eyes. He said in a low voice, If you don't really like this class, I hope you won't walk into the classroom casually in the future. Caitlin was speechless. This tone was very similar to her poor nephew who had been last in the first grade. Originally, Professor Bress thought that one of the Country A students on stage would complete his question. At that time, he would have another chance to mock the other international student. But what he did not expect was, with that said, Professor Bress pointed to two more people to write the questions. This made Professor Bress's face darken. Cullen, are you only focused on talking to your friends in Country A and not on your studies? These two people stood on stage and neither of them wrote. In fact, the blonde boy next to them even leaned over and asked softly. But in the end, the students could not graduate because they did not have enough grades. As a result, there were very few international exchange students who dared to take Professor Bress's elective class. Professor Bress questioned coldly. In fact, people like Professor Bress had been reported by students before, but because Professor Bress's scientific research results were not small, the school only asked Professor Bress to do a self-reflection and apologize to the students. Professor Bress's tone was sarcastic. There was a dead silence. And these international students were probably automatically assigned to the class because they did not have the chance to attend. If some people really can't do it, then scram back to their country and stop embarrassing themselves outside. Don't let others think that no one in your country has scientific research talent. A voice sounded slowly. Caitlin, did the professor in your school pass the psychological test? Caitlin glanced at the professor. Maybe not. As for the boy who was humiliated on stage, his face turned ugly. You, suddenly. Who are you? Professor Bress's face darkened. He pointed at Bai Yunj and sneered, if you are an irrelevant person in this class, you should leave obediently. Hearing that Caitlin dared to accompany her friend and call Professor Bress that way, the surrounding people wanted to applaud her courage. The school belle was really bold. However, unexpectedly, everyone saw the girl suddenly stand up. Her bright and untamed eyes were full of high spirits, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Or do you want to come up and solve the problem? Professor Bress's tone was full of sarcasm and contempt. As soon as he finished speaking, she smiled casually and changed the topic. Since we're already here, how can we not make a scene? You're right, Professor. Caitlin subconsciously looked at Bai Yunj. Bai Yunj, this problem. It's not easy to solve. Before she finished speaking, she saw Bai Yunj take off her headphones, put them into her pocket leisurely, and walked up. Everyone subconsciously looked at Bai Yunj. Chapter 8:10. This girl looked young, but did she really know how to solve a problem that no one in the class could solve? Don't get slapped in the face, however. Just as everyone was thinking, Bai Yunj just glanced at the slides and slowly wrote down two answers, 77. 36%. Omega, NaCl, equals 0. 155%. Below the stage. Caitlin's eyes flashed and she looked at the first question that she was just one step away from solving. After she finished calculating, it happened to be the answer that Bai Yunj wrote on the blackboard. However, when Bai Yunj was sitting next to her just now, she didn't look at the question at all. She was minding her own business. This made Caitlin think that Bai Yunj wasn't a professional. Even a graduate student might not have such speed. Similarly, Braith's face stiffened. He didn't expect Bai Yunj to be able to solve this problem. Moreover, this seemed to be a mental calculation. The people on the stage were confused. The more they listened, the more they couldn't understand Bai Yunj's meaning. Only Caitlin looked at Bai Yunj's eyes dimmed. Professor Braith's face became more and more embarrassed. Also, according to the nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy that the professor just said, the three-dimensional structure of biomacromolecules in solution, Bai Yunj casually picked up the remote control pen on the podium and slowly flipped to the paragraph that Professor Bress had said at the beginning. She picked out all the subtle flaws in Professor Bress's process and extended other thoughts and knowledge points. From biomacromolecules to recombinant DNA, she could even talk about medical fields perfectly and fluently. Braith even found it very difficult to listen to some of the theories in narrow fields and couldn't keep up with her thinking. This was the first time he had been so ruthlessly criticized in front of all the students. However, the girl in front of him was obviously very young, but her knowledge was even richer than his. Braith's scalp went numb as he listened, let alone the freshman. Bai Yunj broke the chalk in his hand into pieces as if he was playing with it. His gaze was very dark, and the corners of his lips were curled up. Professor Bress, a person can't just be a scientist. He has to grow some brains too. His strength could be said to be terrifying. He had long since surpassed his peers. Until he finished his speech. Their eyes were filled with the words, is he starting to cause trouble? And, as expected of a big shot. To be able to snipe Brace until he couldn't speak, this person wasn't just a big shot, this person was a god. In an instant. The students who had been doubting their lives because of that piece of knowledge that made them dizzy suddenly woke up. Professor Bress pointed at Bai Yunj, his face dark and trembling with anger. The other students from Country A also wanted to know which school this person was from in the country. Where did Caitlin find such a god? Too ruthless. This was the first person who dared to talk back to Braith. Scram. Get out of here. Professor Bress flew into a rage out of humiliation. Too strong. However, seeing this scene made her feel so good that her spine went numb. Bai Yunj raised an eyebrow at Caitlin. The corners of her eyes curled up as she slowly walked out of the classroom. Caitlin squeezed the pen in her hand and suppressed the urge to look for Bai Yunj. In the corridor, Bai Yunj picked up Si Qingyan's call. Master Pei, where did you go? Si Qingyan's head hurt. Chapter 8:11. I'm here for a lecture. After Bai Yunj finished speaking, Si Qingyan was silent for a long time. Then, Si Qingyan probed, You didn't cause trouble, did you? Bai Yunj remained silent. Si Qingyan more or less knew what was going on and smiled gently. Mathematics or computing? Or physics? Bai Yunj was silent for a moment. Chemistry. Si Qingyan was speechless. He had almost forgotten about her medical research with Stephen. Why did someone's brain grow like this? Si Qingyan was once again caught in an unsolved mystery of mankind. Then are you still in Neely University? The moment Si Qingyan finished asking, the eyes of the professors in the conference room lit up. They vaguely understood what Si Qingyan meant. I'm going back. Bai Yunj hummed in response. Si Qingyan immediately said, Yunj, Neely University has already prepared an identity card for you as an exchange student. Can you come to the mathematics department's conference room to get it? Bai Yunj looked up and saw a landmark not far away. In the Faculty of Science. Without thinking, she said, okay. At this moment, the mathematics department professors in the conference room were already excited. They were going to see her in person today. Everyone straightened their sleeves and ties and focused their attention on the task at hand. Then, another professor could not help asking, oh right, how old is she? In her 30s? Si Qingyan said. Not in her 30s. The professor's body trembled. Did she just turn 30? Si Qingyan said. She just turned 19. Instantly, the conference room fell into a dead silence. Zhongyuan Shu, right? At the same time, Bai Yunj had just entered the school when she saw a 7 to 8 meter tall wall of fame. It was daunting. There were 7 photo frames hanging on the wall, 2 of which had portraits and signatures. Only the blank photo frame in the middle had a name written under it. Originally, there were 8 photo frames hanging on the wall of fame, but because she had solved 2 questions in a row, one of them was removed. Before Bai Yunj could leave, she saw a group of students surrounding the wall of fame, carrying out a mysterious ritual. Gods, please bless me. Please bless me to pass this exam. Please don't fail. Everyone piously bowed to the portrait one by one, looking very organized and disciplined. Bai Yunj's eyelids twitched as he looked at the group of demonic students. Crooked methods. A short while later, just as Bai Yunj was considering whether to call the security guards, she saw several students from a country take out some fruits from their school bags and put them under the portrait. When the students from the other countries saw this, they also had an epiphany and immediately searched for food on their bodies. Chewing gum, oranges, chocolate, lollipops, and even a small bottle of wine were all found and placed under the portrait. The snacks at the bottom of the table were twice as much as the 2 people on the left and right. He had gained a lot. Bai Yunj, true enough. No matter which school it was, there would always be students who would go crazy learning it. The bell rang. All the students scattered like a swarm of bees. Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows and walked slowly to her photo frame. Soon, the door to the conference room was suddenly pushed open. Everyone looked up and saw an excessively beautiful girl walking in with a bunch of snacks and fruits. Which faculty was this freshman from? Before everyone could connect the dots, they suddenly heard Si Qingyan ask. Ancestor, did you rob someone? Where did you get so many snacks? P.S. Be good, remember the monthly votes. There will be a burst of updates next month. The exact date is not clear yet. Chapter 8:12. They saw Si Qingyan talking to the girl who walked in so familiarly. The professors suddenly had a guess. This unbelievably beautiful girl is. If this was exposed, it would definitely be explosive news. Bei Yunj said slowly, someone gave it to me. Si Qingyan raised an eyebrow in disbelief and took out another piece of chewing gum. How can someone give you chewing gum? Are there so many benefits to being beautiful now? With that said, Si Qingyan looked down and saw that there were cigarettes and lighters in Bei Yunj's pile of things. What nonsense was this? When I came in, I saw a student praying to me in front of the famous person wall, begging not to fail the exam, Bei Yunj said slowly. Si Qingyan instantly understood what was going on with these snacks. Bei Yunj turned around and met the eyes of the professors from the math department of Neely University. A moment later, Bei Yunj gave them some of the things on hand. However, when the professors of Neely University found out about the origin of these snacks, their faces contorted. This is the exchange student information I prepared for you. Si Qingyan handed a folder to Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj opened it. There were some documents and an identity card inside. However, at this moment, the professors still could not believe that the person in front of them was. This was too unbelievable. After Bei Yunj thanked him, he looked at the other professors. Is there anything else? If not. Yes, we have something else to ask for your opinion. After the professor regained his senses, he immediately said, our school would like to specially hire you as a professor in our school. A 19-year-old professor. It sounded very scary. Chinese. However, some people were destined to stand at the peak because of their talent. But I'm not that satisfied with your school. I'm sorry. There was no emotion in Bei Yunj's eyes. His eyes curved slightly, polite and indifferent. It was rare for Si Qingyan to hear Bei Yunj reject him so directly. A trace of thought flashed past his eyes. After the professors looked at each other, someone asked, can I ask why? Your school's teaching style is not in line with your reputation as the top international university. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she made up a random excuse and left. At this moment, Si Qingyan suddenly said, are there any professors in your chemistry department in the afternoon? As soon as he finished speaking, the professors seemed to have thought of something and their expressions changed. Professor Bress from the chemistry department had a class this afternoon. Professor Bress of the chemistry department had been punished because of discrimination against the country's region, but the punishment was not severe. It was also the school's higher-ups who wanted to protect him. What's wrong? A professor asked. Si Qingyan looked at him. I think I went to the chemistry department for class just now. I didn't seem that happy. The professors didn't look too good. As expected, it was Bress who was delaying matters again. This time, it wasn't easy for him to get her into school. He wouldn't tear apart the students of Country A in front of her, would he? I'll get someone to ask right away. One of the older professors took a deep breath and said calmly. At this moment, Si Qingyan's smile didn't reach his eyes. Oh right, we signed a contract with your school back then. I hope you will keep your promise. You can't reveal anything about this. Otherwise, not only will you not participate in any research and development of Neely University's projects in the future, this will also easily cause the friendly relationship between our two countries. Your school also knows what this means to our country. Chapter 8:13. Hearing Si Qingyan's words, the others looked at each other. After that, a professor immediately said, Professor Si, don't worry. Our country's academic and political circles are very separated. We really hope to have a chance to work with you and are willing to protect your safety. As the top school in the world, Neely University's foundation was academics, and it would not ruin the school's reputation because of its leader. That's good. Si Qingyan's brows relaxed and he replied gently, then I'll have to trouble you. If there's a chance in the future, I hope to cooperate with your school. After Si Qingyan settled Bei Yunji's matter, the mathematics department professor also told the principal about this. The principal's expression did not look too good and he immediately called Professor Bress over. Professor Bress was called to the principal's office again. He thought that the students from Country A had said something again and could not help but feel sarcastic. However, when he pushed open the office door, he realized that the principal was looking at him with a terrifying gaze. This was the first time Professor Bress had seen the principal look at someone like this. "Principal, what's the matter?" Professor Bress's tone could not help but soften. But the next moment, the principal threw the teacup on the ground and stood up angrily, ignoring the two mathematics department professors beside him. "What class are you having in the afternoon?" Professor Bress's smile froze. "It's a chemistry class." "What's wrong?" "I was just joking with those children." "Do you have to be so angry, Principal? Are you joking? If you're joking, find a place where you can joke. Leave our Neely University." The moment the principal said this, Professor Bress's expression changed. He realized the seriousness of this matter. But he did not do anything to those students. Why was the principal so angry? "Principal, I'm an old professor of Neely University. Are you going to fire me?" Professor Bress was in disbelief. The principal regretted it. If he had fired Bress earlier, he would not have offended him. "What right do you have to be a professor at Neely University? I already warned you last time, but you still dare to discriminate against students?" The principal was so angry that he felt dizzy. He gritted his teeth. "I didn't teach you a lesson back then. Get lost now and leave our Neely University." This was the first time the principal asked someone to leave the school. He was obviously angry. But Professor Bress did not understand why the principal was so angry. Principal, why? Just because I joked with those students in class?" The mathematics professors could not help but close their eyes. "Are you kidding me? How could he make such a joke in front of her?" Luckily, although he was young, he didn't make a big deal out of it. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Bress to survive in the industry in the future. How could it be as simple as being fired by the school? "You'll resign today. Pack your things and leave Neely University." The principal's face was dark, as if he was determined to make Braith leave. After all, how many connections and favors had he used to get her to come to Neely University? But this guy had directly rejected Neely University. He didn't make a move against this guy because he wanted to save face. 5:00. The students of Country A received an electronic apology letter personally written by the principal, as well as a notice to the entire school announcing the dismissal of Professor Bress. The reason was written clearly. It was also to suppress people like Professor Bress. Chapter 8:14. At the school gate. Before Lilia got into the car, she saw Bei Yunj waiting for someone at the door. Her eyes darkened as she clenched her fists subconsciously and muttered, "Is she really our school's exchange student? How could this be? Miss?" It was only when the chauffeur called her that Lilia reacted and got into the car. But along the way, she kept thinking about Bei Yunj's appearance at Neely University. Bei Yunj circled around Neely University for a while before reaching the south gate. Unfortunately, Shang Yan had asked Niayu to pick her up and the car was parked at the north gate. Hence, he could only go around half of Neely University to pick her up. Soon, a black car stopped in front of her. Niayu rolled down the window and called out respectfully, "Missy." Unexpectedly, Bei Yunj looked at the cigarette in her hand for a long time and asked lazily, "Assistant Nya, do you want a cigarette?" Niayu's eyelids twitched. "You're too polite." Bei Yunj got into the car and casually put the cigarette aside. This was the cigarette that the student had placed under her portrait. "Who gave you this cigarette?" Niayu asked carefully as he drove. Bei Yunj said without thinking, "A student of Neely University." Niayu was speechless. This student was actually more like a member of society than him. He didn't even have the guts to pass Bai Yunj a cigarette. As he followed Shang Yan, Niayu also knew that Bai Yunj was the heir of the Higgins family. He also roughly knew that Bai Yunj had a close relationship with the Computing Institute. Moreover, if old Mr. Nance had taken a fancy to Bai Yunj, she was definitely not an ordinary person. "Miss, are you going to the corporation?" Niayu asked. "I love e-books." The elders of the corporation had long wanted to see who the new heir was. After all, they had always thought that Nance was going to save this position for Shang Yan. But unexpectedly, this old man turned around and changed it to someone else. "No, I want to rest." After Bai Yunj finished speaking, Niayu nodded. "Then I'll send you back to rest first. When you came to Neely, old Mr. Nance had already prepared a place for you to stay." Hearing this, Bai Yunj responded faintly and did not think about anything else. But when they were about to arrive, Bai Yunj realized that something was wrong. Wasn't this road leading to the Bayan Manor? Bai Yunj asked, "Where do I live?" "Backton Manor." Niayu raised his mouth and smiled. Neely only has two private noble manors. One was Backton Manor, and the other was Bayan Manor. "Oh, Bayan Manor, it's right next to Mrs. Manor." The other noble manors were also confiscated and turned into tourist areas. As for the newly built manors and villas, they couldn't compare to Backton and Bayan. Bai Yunj. Yeah. Seeing that Bai Yunj didn't seem to be interested in where to live, Niayu didn't say much. Until they arrived at Backton Manor. Bai Yunj stepped on marble tiles. The domed ceiling was decorated with rose-painted windows. Not far away, there were decorative plaster carvings and classically designed peacock galleries. Even the living room was oak-paneled with art exhibits. This was the attitude of the top rich people in our nation. "Miss Pei, I'm the butler here. My name is Sun Xiaoqi." An old man walked up to Bai Yunj and said gently, "Old Mr. Nance specially transferred me here." "Thank you, Butler Sunday," Bai Yunj nodded and smiled. "I want to go to the bedroom first." "Miss, you're welcome. Please follow me." Butler's son looked at Bai Yunj with a noble air in his eyes. He looked like the owner of this manor. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 8:15. After Bai Yunj took a shower and went upstairs to sleep. The butler of the Bayan Manor opposite had just returned from outside and looked at the brightly lit Backton Manor. Strange. The neighbor opposite was actually back. The butler had never known who the neighbor opposite was. All these years, he had never seen the lights on opposite, but today, it was on for the first time. "What are you looking at?" Fernans, who was talking to someone not far away, frowned. At this moment, the butler turned around and saw Elena and Lilia opposite Fernans. He was a little surprised, but he quickly smiled and said, "Sir, our neighbor seems to be back." "The one from the Backton Manor?" Fernans was stunned. He had always heard that the manor opposite belonged to the Higgins family, and the head of the Higgins family was Nancy. But Nancy had long disappeared, so who did this manor belong to? Those who could live in the Backton Manor were definitely not inferior to the 4 big families in our nation. "Yes, sir. I even bumped into the butler opposite. He seems to be from country A." Hearing the butler's words, Fernans was even more curious about the identity of the person opposite him. At this moment, Elena, who had been silent all this while, had a slight change in expression. The smile on her face was a little stiff. The owner of the Backton Manor seems to have always been very mysterious. Lilia subconsciously glanced at Elena. Seeing that she looked a little embarrassed, she did not dare to say anything. The Fue Rose Manor that Elena lived in was built to imitate the Backton Manor. However, because of the unique terrain advantage of the Backton Manor, the effect of the imitation of the Fue Rose Manor was not satisfactory. It was even 1/3 smaller. "I forgot to ask, what are you doing here?" Fernans asked calmly. At this moment, Elena's expression changed and she smiled coquettishly. Her hand, which was wearing black lace gloves, elegantly opened the box on the table. She pushed it in front of him. It was a glass bottle the size of a fingernail. There were 3 bottles in total. This is the HIG reagent that I just brought back from our nation's medical institute. I heard that you have been looking for it, so I specially presented it to you. The moment Elena finished speaking, the butler beside her subconsciously looked at Fernans. Some time ago, the most remote branch of the Fernans family went to country to seek medical treatment in the name of the Fernans family. In the end, because of his bad attitude, he got into a big trouble with our nation's medical institute and was even fractured by the director. As a result, when Fernans went to country R's medical institute to ask for medicine, he was politely rejected. Some of the older people in the academic circle were stubborn. Even if a knife was placed on their heads, they wouldn't care. Fernans was angry, but there was nothing he could do about the medical institute. He could only go home angrily and look for other connections. However, he did not expect Elena to deliver the reagent to him today. This is my apology to you as Lilia's aunt. Elena smiled and said, I hope you can forgive Lilia for speaking carelessly yesterday. Fernans glanced at Elena. Actually, Elena was only 2 years older than Lilia, but she was brave and resourceful. Fernans pursed his lips. Butler. Hearing this, the butler immediately understood. He brought down a contract from upstairs and gave it to Elena. Thank you for your gift, Miss Elena. Of course, I can't accept your kindness for nothing. This contract is a return gift. Chapter 8:16. Old Sir has always had a good relationship with my grandfather. If I accept your gift, he won't be happy. A dark look flashed past Elena's eyes as she smiled. These are 2 different things. After saying that, Fernans looked at her. Oh right, I also want to know where you got this reagent. After all, our nation's medical institute had never liked to interact with the rich and powerful. It was all their director's bad habit. My friend is from the International Musicians Association. She has a good relationship with the members of the medical institute and helped me get 3 reagents. A dark look flashed past Elena's eyes and she said, if there's a chance, I'll introduce you. Fernans did not say anything. Elena knew that this matter was settled. She curled her lips and said casually, I heard that a lady came to your house yesterday. Fernans looked at her. That's right. She should be quite an outstanding girl. Lilia also said that she met her at Neely University today. Hearing Elena say this, Fernans was also surprised. Neely University? That naughty girl from yesterday looked like an indecent student. She could still come to Neely University as an exchange student? Maybe the girl keeps a low profile. She looks like a very capable lady. Elena curled her lips and a strange glint flashed across her eyes. She continued, Old Sir, if you're free, why don't you go to Neely University tomorrow and get to know this lady better? With that said, Elena did not disturb him further and left with Lilia. On the way, Lilia could not help asking, Aunt, but I don't know where that girl is attending classes. What does it matter? I've already gotten someone to check. After Elena finished speaking, she received a message. She looked down and could not help but laugh. Interesting. She's also in the computer department. Lilia looked up instinctively. She's in the computer department? Under normal circumstances, why would they arrange for someone to be in the computer department? 123 book website. This was Neely University's trump card, and the pressure was also the greatest. Hence, the school's psychological guidance room was mostly filled with computer department students. Since it's such a coincidence, you have to perform well tomorrow. Elena instructed. Lilia nodded and pursed her lips. I understand. Although she called Elena her aunt, she was the young miss of a side branch of the Angel family. If Elena thought she was useless, she could disappear into Neely at any time. Also, Elena had been going to the International Musicians Association a lot recently and had taken a fancy to a talented young pianist. While passing by, Elena glanced at the Bacton Manor with a gloomy gaze before retracting her gaze. The next day. At 9 in the morning, Si Qingyan had already called Bei Yunj several times. Master Pei, where are you? As soon as he answered the call, Si Qingyan was about to break down. Bei Yunj wiped her hair and said slowly, what's the matter? Si Qingyan. Do you remember your identity as an exchange student? Bei Yunj replied, I remember. Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched. Then what are you doing now? Skipping class. Si Qingyan, ? I'm busy these 2 days. Let's talk about it in a few days. After that, Bei Yunj hung up the phone and prepared to go out. However, not long after Bei Yunj rejected the butler's private car and walked out of the manor, she looked up and saw a familiar car parked beside her. It was Fernand's who got out of the car. Chapter 8:17. Suddenly. Bei Yunj's eyes met with Fernand's. The atmosphere fell into a subtle chill. Why are you here at this time? Fernand's narrowed his eyes and asked suspiciously. Bei Yunj also sensed his and the butler's probing gazes. Then, just as she was about to tell the truth, she heard Fernand's look at her angrily. Even if you can't keep up with your studies, you can't skip class. Bei Yunj took back what she wanted to say. The butler immediately advised, Old sir, Miss is still young and insensible. She's already an adult, yet she's still young? When Fernand thought that the future wife of the family head was like this, he almost blacked out. Both of them were only concerned about Bei Yunj and did not appear at school. However, they forgot to think about why Bei Yunj would appear at the entrance of the Bacton Manor at this time. Then I'll go to school. With that said, Bei Yunj was ready to leave. However, he did not expect to be stopped by Fernand's. Wait. Bei Yunj turned around and heard Fernand say, I happen to have something to do at Neely University. Let me send you off. Bei Yunj. Okay. After getting into the car, Bei Yunj sent a message to Shang Yan. Not long after, everyone at Higgins Corporation received the news that their future boss had stood them up. Some people even guessed that their future boss was deliberately trying to intimidate them. However, in the car, Mr. Fernand's expression did not look too good. Where are you going to class? Bei Yunj said without hesitation, the computer science department. As soon as she finished speaking, Fernand's and the butler seemed to understand why Bei Yunj had skipped class. They did not know what Bei Yunj's high school and Neely University were thinking. A third-year student was sent to the computer science department as an exchange student? The computer science department of Neely University was famous for being crazy. It was said that the last place in the computer science department had transferred to another department because of the pressure, but in the end, he became the first place in another department. Fernand's wondered if it was still possible to turn around and send Bei Yunj back. Although he felt that Bei Yunj should study hard at this age, he did not want Bei Yunj to be tortured by the computer science department. Who chose this major for you? Fernand's asked. Bei Yunj thought for a moment. I should have chosen it myself. Fernand's and the butler, then he couldn't blame anyone else. Along the way, Fernand's wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, when he got out of the car, he could not help but ask, Are you sure you want to be an exchange student in the computer science department? Yes. Bei Yunj had no choice but to take out the rolled-up information sheet from her pocket. After laying it out, she could clearly see the class she was going to attend. He was a third-year computer science student. When Fernand saw it, he froze and was about to fight with the principal of Neely University. Wasn't this too much? Sending a third-year student to the third-year computer science department? Was this something a human would do? Just as Fernand was about to say something to Bei Yunj said, Grandpa, I'll go to class first. With that said, Bei Yunj left. Old sir, what do you think? The butler, who was at the side, also felt that Neely University was deliberately targeting the exchange students from country A. Let's go and settle the score with that old fool. Fernand's face darkened as he turned around and walked aggressively to the principal's office. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 8:18. On the other side. The professor in class put on his glasses and looked at the name list in his hand. He frowned in confusion. When did an exchange student come to our school? This name list was placed on his table this morning. Bei Yunj? The professor shouted at the classroom hall, but no one answered. A dark look flashed across Lilia's eyes. She did not expect that person to be late for no reason on the first day of the exchange students' class. Was she relying on the Fernandes family behind her? Coincidentally, the morning class was late that day. Just as the professor's expression was not too good and he shouted for the third time, a voice suddenly sounded from the door. Sorry, Professor, I'm late. In the blink of an eye, the crowd saw a beautiful girl. Her eyes were lazy and unruly, causing people to be dazzled. The professor felt that Bei Yunj's tone was quite sincere. Because of this face, the professor's expression softened. Why are you late? Bei Yunj did not think that she could tell the truth in this situation. After thinking for a long time, she found an excuse. Helping an old grandpa cross the road. All of a sudden, the atmosphere was quiet. The professor's expression darkened again. A few girls could not help but burst into laughter as they looked at the girl at the door. This was the first time they had met such a student from Country A. She was too daring. As expected, when the professor heard this, he asked Bei Yunj to stand at the door to see if there were any other old grandpas who needed help. Bei Yunj propped her head lazily and glanced at the message Delaney sent her. She threw her phone back into her pocket. Until class ended. Only then did the professor allow Bei Yunj to return to the classroom. At this moment, the students were privately splitting into groups. Have you guys split into groups? After saying that, the girl looked at Bei Yunj again. With the exchange student, there's no shortage of people. With that said, everyone glanced at Bei Yunj and immediately rushed to form a team. Lilia, can I be in the same group as you? Lilia, come with me. Bei Yunj turned around and saw a familiar face. She saw Lilia look up at her and raise her eyebrows at her. She slowly walked to the back seat and found an empty seat. In these 10 minutes, everyone was scrambling to form a team with the outstanding students in the class, fearing that they would encounter a bad teammate. But in the end, there would still be students who were left behind. The remaining 4 students looked at each other and then at Bei Yunj in the back row. Among the 4 of them, 3 of them were from Country A. Because of the language barrier, very few people were willing to team up with them. Yelena, aren't you going to team up with us? The teammate beside Lilia frowned and shouted for Yelena again. Yelena's grades in the class were also ranked second. Why would he be willing to be in the same group as those who were left behind? No need. After Yelena finished speaking, she sat down in front of Bei Yunj and smiled. Hello, I'm Yelena. When Bei Yunj was talking to the professor just now, she had noticed Bei Yunj. She liked Bei Yunj's personality very much. Hello. Bei Yunj curled her lips. I'm Bei Yunj. Can I form a team with you? Yelena did not hide her intention to seduce Bei Yunj. Even Lilia, who was in front, frowned when she heard this. Her relationship with Yelena had always been quite average, but she was clear about Yelena's strength. She did not understand why she would waste her time forming a team with those people. P.S. Our monthly votes are getting fewer and fewer. Good luck, guys. Chapter 8:19. Bei Yunj glanced at Yelena and answered casually. The other 3 looked at each other and immediately asked, Then can we team up with you? Bei Yunj glanced at them. Anything is fine. Hearing this, the 3 of them finally heaved a sigh of relief. But the next moment, they heard a sneer not far away. No way. Do they think they can make a comeback with Yelena? Yelena hasn't come to class for 2 to 3 months. Who knows what the group report will be like this time? Don't talk about it. Didn't they bring along a burden who doesn't know anything? I don't know what kind of background that person has. How can a third-year student become an exchange student of our third year? And other than her, I've never heard of any exchange students in our school. The others started discussing, especially Lilia's team. They were full of pride and were already determined to get first place. Lilia, how should we arrange the group report this time? Someone asked. Lilia also smiled. There's no hurry. There's still 4 to 5 days. There won't be any problems. The group report this time was actually for the speech in 4 days. 4 days later, the Delaney Group's key project would come to Neely University to pick people to join their project team. Now, the Delaney Group was very popular and had become an employment company that computer science students were scrambling for. However, the Delaney Group had always been strict in choosing people. Even at a top school like Neely University, only a few could enter the Delaney Group. Someone asked carefully, Lilia, do you want to intern at the Delaney Group or Angel Group in the future? Everyone waited for Lilia's answer. Lilia curled her lips. I don't plan to enter either of them. With that, she looked at them. But don't worry, I'm determined to get first place this time. A dark glint flashed across Lilia's eyes. If she returned to Angel Group, she would be monitored by Elena. If she went to the Delaney Group, she would easily offend her family. Fortunately, she had already prepared a third path. Lilia had already found out that the Delaney Group was not the only one who came to their school to recruit people. It was just another organization that could not be made public. However, as long as she was chosen by the people of that place, even the Angel family or the Fernandes family would favor her. Therefore, she had to get first place. Afternoon. Bei Yunj had just returned to the classroom when she saw that the other 4 had already finished their work. She thought for a moment. Don't you need me to do anything? Yelena also looked at Bei Yunj and thought for a long time. Then, she held Bei Yunj's hand and patted it. Go and get a glass of water for your team member. Bei Yunj. Okay. This was the first time that Bei Yunj had been suppressed. Bei Yunj walked out of the classroom with 4 cups in her arms. Not long after she left, someone suddenly grabbed her by the collar. Where are you going for class? Bei Yunj looked up and saw that it was her professor. My team members are thirsty, Professor. The professor looked at Bei Yunj and remembered that Bei Yunj was a third-year high school student. Indeed, he couldn't be of much help with the team's report. He did not know what the school was thinking, throwing a third-year high school student into the computer science department. At the thought of this, the professor's face darkened and he walked towards the principal's office. He cursed, this is too much. It's fine if you let those people from the math department poach our computer science department yesterday. Now, you actually threw a third-year high school student into our department. Chapter 820. At this moment. In the principal's office. The atmosphere was tense. What are you doing here? The principal couldn't help but ask. Fernandes was still sitting on the sofa, looking dignified. Worrell, your Neely University is the top school in our nation. Are you so mean to the exchange students? Worrell seemed to have thought of something and immediately retorted, stop talking nonsense. Our school treats everyone equally. Fernandes chuckled. Treat everyone equally? Treat everyone equally? You don't treat the exchange students as humans? The butler beside him looked down and didn't say a word. What nonsense are you talking about? Principal Worrell had a headache. He didn't know why Fernandes had come to find trouble with him today. You're still not admitting it? Have you ever cared about the life and death of an exchange student here? After Fernandes finished speaking, Principal Worrell thought that he was talking about Professor Bress. He couldn't help but feel guilty. It's not that serious, right? It's not that serious. Fernandes' face darkened. If anything happens to that student, can you bear the responsibility? Worrell was speechless. In the end, his voice weakened. I'll comfort them and give them some rewards. Fernand's expression improved slightly when he heard that. What reward? Principal Worrell said, a bonus. You think it's over just by paying some money? Fernand's eyes widened. How could the Fernands family lack this bit of scholarship? Principal Worrell found Fernand's annoying, but he couldn't show it on his face. He could only ask with a fake smile. Then what do you think we should do? Let's get a postgraduate degree and enter a key laboratory. Fernands nodded in self-affirmation, feeling very satisfied. Little snail Chinese network the butler's eyelids twitched when he heard this exorbitant demand. Principal Worrell was speechless. He really dared to say that. No. Principal Worrell rejected with a dark expression. Our school has never had such an example. Really? Fernands leaned over and asked, then what if I donate a few more buildings? Principal Worrell said, no. Then I'll fund your school's laboratory. Principal Worrell suddenly paused and fell silent. Is your illegitimate son inside? Or your son's illegitimate son? Headmaster Worrell asked. Fernand's face darkened. Cut the crap. Principal Worrell smiled and leaned back on the sofa leisurely. Mr. Fernands, I'm really sorry. Mr. Delaney has already decided to fund our laboratory. If it were any other time, he might have agreed to Fernand's rude condition. But now, he didn't lack investors. As expected. Fernand's face darkened. Are you kidding me? He suppressed his anger. You don't agree, do you? Do you think your Neely University is the only good school in our nation? Good, very good. When that girl finishes her 3rd year of high school, I'll push resources to whichever school she wants to attend in the future. Hearing this, Headmaster Worrell suddenly sensed that something was wrong. Senior year? Isn't he a freshman? Principal Worrell asked. Fernand sneered, you're still pretending? My girl is only a senior high school student, and you dare to let her be an exchange student in the computer science department. We don't have any exchanges this semester. Sheng said. Before Principal Worrell could finish speaking, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Chapter 8:21. Principal Worrell suddenly had a ridiculous thought. The way he looked at Fernand's changed again and again, and the teacup in his hand almost shook. Who are you talking about? Principal Worrell felt that his voice was a little weak. Fernand sneered. Are you still pretending? Are you trying to deny it? Principal Worrell was speechless. He really could not believe that a new scientific researcher could be related to such an unreasonable old man's family. Did he make a mistake? Principal Worrell asked again stubbornly, the girl you're talking about, is an exchange student from the 3rd year computer science department? Seeing that he finally admitted it, Fernand smiled. What else? At this moment, Principal Worrell's expression was distorted. He was extremely jealous. Why was this so? This guy was so rich, yet he could still bring such a scientific research genius home? Did he save the Milky Way in his previous life? Looking at Principal Worrell's distorted expression, Fernands was puzzled. What do you mean by that expression? Don't tell me you have a grudge with my meanie? Principal Worrell listened to Fernands call her his meanie and was both envious and wanted to punch him. He had never seen anyone who dared to call her meanie. How was that possible? Principal Worrell did not want to say anything more to Fernands. He even felt that Fernands was seriously ill. Did he need to donate a building and fund a laboratory to come to Neely University? If he was willing to come, Neely University could donate a building to the Fernands family. Why do you think that? Why? That person needs you to donate to the university upstairs. Principal Worrell was really curious. Fernands thought that Principal Worrell was looking down on Bei Yunj, so he immediately said in a boastful tone, what's wrong with donating a building? Our Mina's studies are poor, so is it a problem for her to be ordinary? Let's pick the books. Our girl is so good looking. Even if she's a vase, she's the prettiest. The butler's eyelids twitched, and he could not help but look at Fernands again. Didn't he say that the madam of the family could not be like Miss Pei, who only had a face? When Principal Worrell heard this, he did not know what expression to put on. There were probably not many people who could say that she was a vase. Suddenly, a dark look flashed across Principal Worrell's eyes before they suddenly became gentle. Actually, your family's girl can also come to our school. Fernans was surprised. He did not understand why Principal Worrell had suddenly changed his mind. Really? Of course it's true. You don't have to donate the building or fund it. Headmaster Worrell didn't dare to ask for it either. She was afraid that he would settle the score with her. However, when Fernans heard him say this, he immediately narrowed his eyes. Worrell, when have you been so polite to me? Previously, the Fernans family had almost been admitted to Neely University. Fernan's son had spent a lot of money to make up for that point. How could Worrell be so understanding now? This. Principal Worrell froze. Subsequently, Fernans was shocked and angry. Old thing, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to my granddaughter-in-law? Why don't you take a look at how old you are? Can't you act like a human? Principal Worrell, hold it in. Cultured people shouldn't make a move. No. Principal Worrell was so angry that he could taste blood in his throat. But soon, Principal Worrell reacted and suddenly stood up. What? Your granddaughter-in-law? Chapter 8:22. The butler beside him looked at Fernans, his emotions indescribable. He did not know who it was that angrily called for a family gathering and said that the daughter-in-law of the Fernans family could not only have a face. He even said righteously that the Fernans family never did anything like pulling strings. It scared the young masters of the Fernans family so much that they even asked about their lover's education background. But now? Miss Pei did not say anything and he came over to spend money to buy schools and resources for Miss Pei. He was probably more concerned than Miss Pei's parents. Now, he even admitted that she was his granddaughter-in-law. Not my granddaughter-in-law, but your granddaughter-in-law? Fernans asked coldly. Principal Worrell wanted to say something but hesitated. His expression did not look too good. Was the Fernans family burning incense? Why did all the good things happen to their family? Principal Worrell took a deep breath and asked kindly, then I wonder, which biological grandson of yours it is? At the same time, Principal Worrell could not help but be excited. If that was the case, wouldn't he be half our nation? He's in a nation, Fernans said. Principal Worrell comforted him. It's okay. Even if he's in a nation, he's still our nation. No, because of some things, he took his mother's surname and his nationality is a nation. Fernan's eyes darkened. Worrell's expression froze when he heard this. Why are you so curious about Armeni? Fernans looked at him strangely. Principal Worrell coughed softly and did not dare to say anything. After all, if she wanted Fernans to know her true identity, she would have said it long ago. It would not be his turn to speak. Besides, he had signed the agreement with a nation. Fernans, maybe that classmate isn't as bad as you think. Principal Worrell could only hint at him like this. Fernans shook his head. I don't think that girl has a good temper. She's probably a troublemaker. Principal Worrell was speechless. Can I have such a troublemaker as my granddaughter-in-law? Headmaster Worrell hated such people who did not know how lucky they were. After Principal Worrell sent Fernans off, the professor from the computer department slammed the door of the principal's office angrily. Headmaster Worrell hadn't even taken a sip of his tea. What's the matter? Principal, how can you place a third-year exchange student in our class? We're from the third class. Principal Worrell's eyelids twitched. He remembered that this batch of professors had not signed the agreement yet. It's only for a few days anyway. Just bear with it. After that, Principal Worrell didn't even open the door. He put on his earpiece and turned on the computer to watch the basketball match. The professor outside shouted for a long time, but when he saw that the principal didn't come out, his face changed. This was too irresponsible to the students. This was also the first time he knew that third-year high school students were sent to the third-year university as exchange students. How was this the style of a top university? The professor was angry for a long time, but he could only return to the classroom. Sitting in the car, Fernans recalled Principal Worrell's vague words to Bai Yunj. It was as if they didn't dare to recruit Bai Yunj into the school after hearing what he said. Fernans asked the butler in confusion, "So that Mina's studies are so bad that I can't get into Neely University even if I spend money?" The butler smiled gently. "Sir, it might also be because your words just now scared Principal Worrell." Chapter 8:23. Fernans frowned. "I'm not agitated." With that said, however, Fernans was clearly worried. He was worried that the Fernans family would have such a wife in the future. At the same time, Bai Yunj saw the message from Shang Yan. "Shang Yan, the people from the technical department said that they want to change your project." Bai Yunj raised an eyebrow and replied quickly. "Shang Yan, they haven't gotten off work yet." Bai Yunj's eyes flickered and she looked at Yelena. "You really don't need my help?" Yelena turned to look at Bai Yunj. "You're the face of our team. What can you do for us?" Bai Yunj was silent for a moment. "Then I'll go back first. I still have something to do. Then you can go back." Yelena was very generous, and the others looked at this third-year high school girl with kind eyes. This was a third-year project report. No matter how inhumane they were, they wouldn't exploit a third-year high school girl. Then, from the corner of her eye, Lilia also saw Bai Yunj leaving with her things. "Lilia?" Someone called out to her and followed Lilia's gaze. When they saw Bai Yunj leaving, they couldn't help but sneer. Yelena is so magnanimous. She brought 3 burdens and a third-year high school kid who can't help at all. Lilia also laughed. A dark look flashed across her eyes before she turned her head away disapprovingly. However, just after Bai Yunj agreed to go to Higgins' group, she walked on the campus with her hat pressed down. At the same time, the butler was still comforting Fernans. "Number 5-inch-old sir, you don't have to think so much. Mr. Huo won't pick the wrong person." The butler continued to smile. "Maybe Miss is also a promising talent." "Stop the car." Before the butler could finish speaking, Fernans interrupted him. Then, the butler looked up and saw Bai Yunj walking slowly by the roadside. The butler was speechless. Neely University's computer science students wouldn't be loitering around the campus at this time. Then it was confirmed. Miss Pei skipped class twice a day. In the face of this situation, the butler, who had always been full of smiles, could no longer smile. The next moment, the gloomy Fernans opened the door and got out of the car. As it happens, the moment Bai Yunj looked up, she saw an old gentleman in a suit beside her. Bai Yunj obviously didn't expect to be caught by the old man twice in a day. "You skipped class twice a day?" For the first time, Fernans knew what it meant to expect better from someone. In the past, in the family, the younger generation did not dare to cry and make a scene in front of Fernans. It was their parents who strictly restrained them. Therefore, in Fernan's eyes, all the juniors were obedient, sensible, and proactive. This was really the first time in Fernan's life that he had encountered a thorn like Bai Yunj. Bai Yunj paused for a moment, then slowly chewed on the candy. When the butler saw how furious Fernans was, he could not help but lower his head and hide the smile on his face. He suddenly seemed to know why Fernans would not let Bai Yunj go. Everyone was well-behaved, respectful, and obedient in front of Fernans. Only this girl in front of him had an unruly personality, but she was very likable to the elders. And the Fernans family had never had such a junior. The only girl in the family was like a mouse seeing a cat when she saw Fernans. Chapter 8:24. Seeing that Bai Yunj did not speak, Fernans became even angrier. "Don't you have anything to say?" Bei Yunj looked up and asked seriously, "Then do you want to listen to my excuses?" Fernans was speechless. The butler was speechless. This train of thought seemed to be right, but there seemed to be something wrong. Until the next moment. Before Fernans could reprimand him, an angry voice suddenly sounded from behind. "Bei Yunj? Where are you going?" Fernans turned around and saw a middle-aged man wearing glasses. "He should be a professor." The professor said angrily, "About you helping the old man cross the road this morning, I haven't." Suddenly, Bei Yunj's lips curled up. He moved closer to Fernans and held his arm. He said sincerely, "Professor, look, I helped the old man this morning." The professor was speechless. Fernans was speechless. Then, under the professor's gaze, Fernans took a deep breath and glared fiercely at Bei Yunj. However, the next moment, he turned around and smiled kindly. "Hello, I'm the one who received help from this classmate this morning." "Grandpa." The professor was speechless. The butler was speechless. It was almost certain that those people in the family would never have thought that the old master was a parent who doted on the younger generation. If it were any other junior in the Fernans family, who would dare to tug at Fernans' sleeve and ask him to help lie? Miss Pei was also someone with a wild background. "Have I seen you somewhere before?" The professor felt that this old man, who was helped across the road by Bei Yunj, looked very familiar. "I don't think so." After saying that, Fernans smiled even more kindly and patted Bei Yunj's head. "Good child, hurry up and go to class with the professor. Don't waste your precious learning time." Bei Yunj was speechless. Soon, Bei Yunj could only follow the professor back. However, the professor felt that something was wrong. 186 Chinese website. The car that the old man got into just now was probably a luxury car worth tens of millions. Did he still need to walk across the road? At this thought, the professor checked the car again. He realized that there was only one car sold in the world. It was bought by the old man from the Fernans family 2 years ago. Who the F***ck could help this old man cross the road? The professor was speechless. No wonder he looked familiar. He wanted to curse. The professor looked at Bei Yunj again. He roughly knew why Bei Yunj was put in this class. After Bei Yunj sent a message to Shang Yan, the people from the Higgins group, they knew that they had been stood up by their boss again. As expected of the boss, he was wild. After class, Bei Yunj was still sitting in her seat, flipping through the book in boredom. Suddenly, Bei Yunj felt the phone in her pocket vibrate. Then, she opened it. It was a message to her too. "Do you want to call you?" Seeing this, Bei Yunj's eyes curved as she replied to him lazily. "Class is starting soon. Brother, can you give me 3 minutes?" How could the man in Yunqing not know that this little girl was doing it on purpose? He curled his thin lips and chuckled softly. Not long after, Bei Yunj received a message from the man. "Pay attention in class." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and lazily rested her chin on her hand. She glanced at the chat history between her and Huashidu. This man almost only used online chats as a communication tool. He was a little cold. Only the last time he was drunk. P.S. It's the end of the month. Remember the monthly votes. Chapter 825. Yelena came over and flipped through the report. She felt that it looked familiar but also very unfamiliar. This was not just a little change. Almost only their original framework was retained and a large number of deletions were rewritten in the report. The entire report was filled with precise professional content that involved many fields. Even Yelena could not understand it. Yelena asked subconsciously, who was the last to leave? I think it's Bei Yunj. Another person hesitated for a moment. But as soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent and dismissed this thought. What a joke. They could not even understand this report. How could a third-year high school student write it? Moreover, they had only left for half an hour. The quality of this report would take at least a month to write, right? Just as everyone thought that they had been favored by the goddess of luck, they suddenly realized something else. The report was not just handed in. This was a high-level professional report. No one could explain it on the spot with confidence. Yelena, who was the last to go up and give this report? Someone asked softly. Yelena's eyelids twitched. She felt that she was not worthy of this report. Which god was doing a good deed without leaving his name? I'll give it a try. Yelena took a deep breath and looked at the report with mixed feelings. She was really not confident. 2 to 3 days passed. Lilia's team had also finished their report and could not help but relax. While chatting, Lilia suddenly asked, "How are the preparations for Yelena's team? I don't think I've seen them recently. Who knows what they're up to? I haven't seen them for the past 2 days. Anyway, the group will be showing off this afternoon." Another girl could not help but gloat. "I also want to know what Yelena can do with a few burdens. Ha ha ha, it's a car accident. If I were Yelena, I would be so angry that I would cry. 2 of the worst in the team and a third-year high school girl who doesn't know anything. What kind of trashy teammates are these?" Hearing these words, Lilia's lips curled up. She did not treat Yelena as an opponent and her fear of Bei Yunj was dispelled. Lilia could not help but laugh at the thought of this. Over the past few days, he had observed Bei Yunj for a long time. Other than her pretty face, there was nothing special about her. However, Huashidu would get tired of her face sooner or later. However, it was a pity that Huashidu should have seen such a scene with his own eyes. Until the afternoon. The group presentation that everyone was nervous about was about to begin. According to the order of the draw, Bei Yunj was the last to go up to give a speech. Lilia looked at the number 4 in her hand. It was the third last speech. She laughed in surprise. Then, she glanced at Yelena and the others who had arrived late and were sitting in the last row. Suddenly, Lilia called out to the boy in front of her. "Seni. What's wrong?" Seni turned and asked. "Let's change the order of the draw. I have more content to give." Lilia placed the note 4 on the table. She wasn't worried that Seni would be unwilling. True enough. Seni was shocked to see Lilia right in front of his team. Everyone knew that Lilia's team was the strongest. If she was right in front of their team, wouldn't their team be cannon fodder? Sure. Thank you, Lilia. Seni immediately took Lilia's note. Chapter 8:26. Lilia held the 5 note in her hand and curled her lips thoughtfully. She inadvertently glanced at Bei Yunj's group. Bei Yunj stretched out her hand casually and gently tugged at Yelena's hair. "Are you done memorizing it?" Yelena almost cursed. Was this something that could be memorized in 2 or 3 days? There was too much obscure professional knowledge in this report. Yelena had to check for an entire day before she could roughly understand the main points of the report. As a result, for the past 2 to 3 days, Yelena had been feeling weak when she saw this report. Looking at Yelena's gaze, Bei Yunj roughly understood. She glanced at the paper report a few more times and did not find anything professional. If this was given to Tich and the others, they would probably be able to give a speech without a script in an hour. It's okay. This is our 6th speech. Good luck, Yelena. A few students beside her carefully cheered Yelena on. After all, to be honest, they did not contribute to this report at all. They only helped Yelena check some professional information. They might as well have done more than Bei Yunj, who helped Yelena fetch water every day. The corners of Yelena's mouth twitched. She felt that she was already the hope of the entire group, so she could only bite the bullet and continue memorizing. However, not long after, the members of their team could not help but curse. F***ck, what? I clearly saw that Lilia's lot was 4. How did it become Seni? Hearing this, the others immediately reacted. These 2 groups had secretly changed the order. If this behavior was not deliberately targeted at their group, they would not believe it. Yelena frowned and glanced at Lilia, who was chatting and laughing with someone below the stage. The professors who came to listen to the class gave the reports and speeches of the first few groups. They were not very high. U9 ebook according to the content and the score of the speech, the content was 60 points and the speech was 40 points. The other groups only got a little over 70 points. Seni's group got 76 points, which was the highest so far. But not long after. After Lilia went on stage, everyone could sense that Lilia's choice of topic was very good. It was a different approach. When the professors below the stage saw the report in their hands, they could not help but nod in admiration. In the 20-minute speech, Lilia almost went off script. The professors were not in a hurry to ask questions. She directly got the highest score on the field, 87 points. The pressure on the group at the back had simply skyrocketed. After getting off the stage, there was a smile on Lilia's lips. She even glanced at Yelena and Pei Yunj casually before she slowly sat down in her seat. Below the stage, there was a heated discussion because of the professor's grading 87 points. This score was too arrogant, wasn't it? The first one starts with 8 points, and it's only 3 minutes away from 90. F***ck, luckily we're not behind their group. Otherwise, wouldn't our score be crushed to death? This is more than being crushed to death. Don't you know the standard of Yelena's team? I don't think Yelena can write a good report by herself. I hope she doesn't fail. Serves her right. Didn't she choose the group herself? Amid the discussion, Yelena had already grasped the manuscript and walked onto the stage. He handed the printed report to the professors. The professors casually flipped through the pages, but their breathing stagnated and their hands froze. After coming back to his senses, he immediately flipped through the pages carefully, his eyes shining brightly. Subsequently, before Yelena could start her speech, the students in the front row saw from the corner of their eyes that the professors casually waved the pens in their hands. The content evaluation was given a 60 without hesitation. Chapter 827. The people in the front row who were pleasing to the eye held their breaths and their smiles froze. However, the person in the back row patted one of them on the shoulder and asked with a smile, "Dan, do you think our team will definitely get first place?" Dan froze. This was the first time he saw the professors of Neely University giving full marks. I don't know. Dan was stunned. He subconsciously looked at the PowerPoint that he had just opened. Although the PowerPoint presentation wasn't as accurate as the report, it still stunned everyone who had been feeling smug just now. Who wrote this? Yelena had taken so long off because she had returned from her cultivation. This presentation was simply too good. Lilia, look at the PowerPoint. The person beside her had an ugly expression. At this moment, Lilia looked up and saw the PowerPoint. Her calm smile froze. This is, she said instinctively. At this moment, Yelena took a deep breath and introduced her team and members to everyone before starting her speech. Although it was a little scripted, the difficulty of this report was high to begin with. It was already not easy to not stumble. After it ended, the professors calculated the average score. In the content, only one professor strictly gave 59 points. The average score was still 60 points. Including the speech, they had a total of 92 points. The only team that scored more than 90 points. Seeing this score, the fifth team could no longer laugh. Their faces were slapped. It hurt too much, impossible, Lilia could not understand. Yelena had brought along 4 burdens alone. How could her standards have improved so much? Her thoughts stopped here. Literature Lilia subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj but immediately interrupted her thoughts. Impossible. What did a third-year high school student know? It was not until they were praised by the professors that the sixth team felt that they had won. When the other teams saw the results, they also had mixed feelings. They had just mocked the sixth team for being at the bottom, but they did not expect them to be a dark horse. The members of the fifth team looked even worse. However, this was only the school's prediction. Whether they could really win once would have to wait for the official speech tomorrow afternoon. Yelena heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Let's go and eat something good first." The others immediately agreed. "I have something to do later. You guys go ahead and eat." As usual, Bei Yunj did not participate in group activities. "All right then. Yunj, you must have a meal together tomorrow," Yelena reminded her. "All right." After they left, Bei Yunj also went to pick up a package from Country R's Computing Institute. It was a big deal. Marcus must have known that Bei Yunj had come to Neely University, so he had sent her to Neely University. When Bei Yunj opened it, she saw a brand new silver-white laptop with the logo, HG. It was the logo of Higgins Group, and Bei Yunj was going to pre-sell it in the future. Other than that, there was also a yellow folder. After opening it, it was a share transfer agreement of the Delaney Group. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched as she called Delaney again. The moment Delaney saw the note, he immediately raised his hand to stop the meeting. Just as everyone fell into a cold atmosphere and did not dare to disturb the boss call, they heard Delaney change his tone and smile ingratiatingly. "Are you busy, Master Pei? You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."